Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Got Prehistoric Harem? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It was late at night in the dorms of the support course with a certain pink dreadlock girl named May Hatsume looking over some information she had. I wonder. Inside the information was details she had on a certain green-haired boy's quirk and how it managed for the most part. If a quirk this powerful exists now, I wonder what would happen with its lineage? Going through some more files, she pulled 6 different ones out. Each file held different names along with some information she was able to acquire on them and their quirks. If this strength enhancer was to be used on these quirks, what would the next generation reside with? This calls for an investigation with my new baby. Hatsume shouted the last part before getting up and heading out. As she did, she went towards the dorms of the hero course to the second floor of Class 1A. There, she found a green-haired boy by the name of Izuku Midoriya resting peacefully in his bed. Just sleep soundly, my little test subject. For tomorrow you will be part of an objective to help me make babies for the future. The next morning, Izuku began to wake up somewhat in a daze. Yawned star dot. He pulled his head up before having a bit of a draft near his lower half. In an attempt to keep warm, the green-haired boy grabbed for his covers to only discover the sensation of grass in his hands. What the? He looked down to see that he was not only outside, but also without any form of garments on himself. What's going on? He shot up to notice 6 other people in the area as well. From his own class, his friend/crush Ochako Uraraka, class vice rep Momo Yaoyorozu, and class party animal Mina Ishido. To the left of them were members of the opposing hero class of the school Class B's Setsuna Tokage, Yui Kodai, and Holy Maiden Ibara Shiozaki. Similar to him, however, why are we in the middle of the forest? Izuku began hearing somebody yawn and get up. Weird. This doesn't feel like my bed. The sound came from Ochako for both Izuku and her to lock eyes with one another. Deku? Izuku started staring down slightly to notice the uncovered image of the girl he liked to turn beet red. I am sorry. He covered his eyes for Ochako not to understand before seeing nothing on his person. She then looked down to see nothing on her and screamed. Why are you all so loud in the morning? Yui was the next to awaken and see herself not wearing anything. She didn't seem that fazed until noticing Izuku and turned the other way. Why am I out here and why is Midoriya not wearing any pants? Because pants are overrated, Setsuna replies. Must you be so vile-mouthed so early in the morning? Ibara woke up next for her to turn to Izuku. One look was enough for her to make a wall of vines with her quirk in order to prevent anything on her from being shown. How dare you spy on a woman as such? I hope God smites you with his divine wrath for this unholy act of seeing a woman without any form of protection out of wedlock. What happened? Momo asks, being the last to wake and acknowledge what is going on around them. Izuku turned away before finding a bunch of shrapnel of something metal on the ground with a note. Hey, I think I found a note? What's it say? Mina asks for Izuku to begin reading it aloud. Dear unwilling participants. This doesn't sound good by the start. Izuku cleared his throat while continuing. Recently I have invented a time machine to throw you all back in time. The goal was to see how quirks would react being sent back for it to only fail with the machine used to do so breaking. As of right now, I cannot bring you home and I don't know when I can. I can send items to where you are, but I can't give a return code for you all. Stay safe and be careful. I had discovered your coordinates are before the first human but still during the dinosaur era. Don't let them eat you. Ochako let out a sigh before commenting. I guess it's understandable if it's Hatsume. If it was anyone else, I wouldn't expect them to be able to do something with this. Momo states this while Setsuna walks over to the trees. So we're before dinosaurs. Then why don't I see them? She points this out for Yui to discuss rationality with her. To be fair, I don't think it's that big of a deal if we're dealing with what we are today. The size girl says before seeing a monstrous brachiosaurus was shown towering over them. The girls and Izuku looked at Setsuna without any form of satisfaction seeing this before Momo shouted. Run. They ran as fast as they could to some kind of safety area outside of these enormous beasts' reach. Now what do we do? Is that an actual question, Tokage? We find shelter somewhere it can't find us. Momo shouts in fear of the beast behind them. I see something. Yui points to a cave where they make a break for it and hide out from the prehistoric creature and any alongside him. Pant, what the heck is wrong with Hatsume? First she makes inventions that blow up in my face. Now she sends me back in time for when we can get eaten by dinosaurs. Ochako began to freak out through breaths of air with everyone not thinking she didn't have reason to be ticked. Yaoyorozu, any chance you can make something for us to wear? I'm sure the economy won't collapse if we're this far back in time. Mina asked for the larger dark-haired woman to shake her head no. Even though that would make our lives easier, I don't have the lipids in my body to manage that right now. At most, I can make 1 maybe 2 garments that at the bare minimum covers the important parts to cover. The 7 began thinking of what to do before Ibara noticed something. Midoriya, I think there's a worm or something on your thigh. Setsuna looked closely to smirk while explaining. That's no worm. None of you told me Midoriya was packing some heavy sausage. Izuku quickly looked down to panic and cover himself. EP. Oh my. I didn't expect men to get so big. Dear God, please forgive me for seeing what I have. If I had known what that was in the beginning, I would have never gazed upon it. My eyes have become soiled by it and Ibara continued to pray as fast as she could while everyone was rather silent. Why was it standing up? Izuku mentally screamed to himself. It must have been due to the adrenaline rush that we had. I don't expect Midoriya to be a pervert in that regard. Momo says this while trying to compose what she saw. Who cares if he's a pervert? He's literally the only man on Earth right now and I don't care what you think. I'm getting a ride with Mr. Long Dong Silver over there the first chance I get. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Setsuna. Yui tried to talk her friend out of this for the green-haired girl to argue. Why not? Think for a second. We are away from normal civilization. Things such as pregnancy and common illnesses we would suffer and take a form of medicine or go to a doctor about are no longer in our possession right now. So if we get sick or do things that could require a doctor for the best medical help, then it would end in bitter side effects. Momo explained with Ochako adding one final bit. Also, I don't think Deku's gonna handle well. Already red as a cherry from this talk. Everyone noticed Izuku completely red. The green-haired boy then gets up to walk out of the cave. I am gonna go find some food and something to keep warm with for the night. He walked out with Ochako getting an idea. Momo, can you make one more thing of clothes for me? She nodded to half to pieces of garments that looked like a tan cloth for Ochako to wear before she ran out. Deku, wait up. Izuku turned around to see Ochako run up to him. Uraraka. What's up? I wanted to help if I could, so I asked Momo to make another pair of garments so you didn't have to do this alone. Thank you then. The two started walking into the wilderness to see the dense forest covered in vines, bushes, and trees alike. To keep them from getting lost, Ochako used a stick to make a line in the sand from where they began so they could continue back towards the cave. They found a few large leaves along with some vines, wood they could burn for warmth, and some bananas that they found in a tree for some reason. The two weren't exactly fond with having just fruit, but you make do with what you can. Once they had everything they thought they'd need, the two began following the trail back. Before they did though, Ochako stood in front of Izuku for a moment. Deku, I kinda wanted to talk to you about something. What is it? Ochako was nervous and didn't know what to say. All she could do is look to the side in embarrassment. You see, I've been kinda keeping something to myself. Not that it's a big deal, but it's kinda something I need to get off my chest. She cleared her throat before speaking. Izuku, since the day I met you, sort of like you. As in, more than a friend. Izuku was silent after hearing this. He did want to be more than friends with Ochako, but chose not to out of fear of ruining what was already there. So with the courage he had, he grabbed Ochako's shoulders to slowly move closer towards her. If you'd like. We could call us a couple. I'd like that. The two walked back towards the cave with their hands intertwined. Little did they know, a floating upper half of a head was behind a tree to hear everything that was said. Back at the cave. So they're now a couple now. Dang it. I wanted to have some fun with Mito. Mina was somewhat annoyed, but happy her ship had sailed. Don't be ticked. Maybe we can still work the whole being stuck in the past thing to our advantage to get some action of our own. Setsuna states with the top half of her head missing to show only her mouth and nose. I think we should focus on the reality of where we are right now instead of populating the Earth right now. I'm with Yayarosa here. I'm not into rocking the boat yet and I'd rather not make an issue if possible. Yui points this out while they turn to Ibara who was praying in the corner. Dear God, please forgive these wayward souls and protect the humbleness of Midoriya and Uraraka who have tried to do what is in your wishes. Let their love blossom and flourish in this time of crises. Nobody could understand this, but was somewhat hoping she wasn't this insane throughout their time together. I wonder if she'd level out if she got a taste of Mito? Mina, what? It was just a question, Yamamoto. Besides, I'm not ready to give the only guy here up that easily. Maybe we can get Ochako to share him? I don't understand how, but I'm hoping Ibara's prayer is actually able to work for Midoriya's sake. Yui thought this as Setsuna and Mina began going over what to do in order to have the duo get an open relationship. Before we go any farther, let me make this clear where this came from. Someone commented that this is the same as a fan art done with these characters in a prehistoric era. They're right. This was inspired by that, and for reasons that pertain to it showing nudity, I can't show it here. Enjoy. As the teens dealt with their own problems where they were, Hatsume had requested the classes of 1A and 1B to come to her lab. Most were confused that some of their classmates weren't there until they were brought into the laboratory to stand in front of the pink-haired girl. Hatsume, why did you need us to come here? Izawa spoke up for the inventor to smile at him. I'm glad you asked. Well, I kinda made a mistake. Here we go. Everyone who knew about Hatsume knew something either blew up, or had been done in a way that it became more of a problem for everyone around them. Can we at least wait until our missing classmates are here? It is unwise to do this without them around if this is such a problem to bring all of us here. Ida states through karate chops with the smile on Hatsume not dropping. Well, this actually pertains to the people that are missing. You see, I was working on an invention and seeing what would happen if we could go back in time and get some base DNA for humans and how it would affect our study on quirks today. Unfortunately, the machine kinda was destroyed. She was laughing a bit while everyone around began shouting. You trapped our classmates in the past? Momo immediately started laughing, thinking the members of Class A couldn't even keep their filth in this timeline to begin going in the past to muddy the timeline itself. This deserved a hard chop from Kendo to explain 3 of their classmates were thrown in the past as well, with him not able to boast of anything really. Wait, does that mean I'm related to the shitty nerd? Bakugu started shouting in anger for everyone to roll their eyes at him. Izawa came up shortly after to get every bit of information he could out of Hatsume. Is there any way to bring them back? As of this point, no. It can take weeks if not months to create the return point, and if I mess anything up the portal will collapse in on itself, creating a black hole. This invention was supposed to be my magnum opus, but I did also create one other thing that they have. Okay, so in what time are they exactly, Ribbit? Hatsume looked at her charts before answering. Before humans, but not after the Cretaceous period of the dinosaurs. You sent our classmates back in time to the dinosaur age? Everyone shouted again, with Bakugu still shouting over the fact he may be related to Izuku. Wait a second, what was that thing you said they also had? Izawa asks, seeing as he is the only one remaining sane at the moment. I created a self-replicating nanobot that can sustain their bodies for eras if not eons, so long as they eat a constant diet and have sunlight to fuel it. It was originally intended to be the answer to aggressive forms of cancer being able to attack the malformed cells, but in tests it ended up prolonging the life of the lab rats by years. Rats only live for about 5 years and these ones are almost 15. Before you ask, I had already tested the time machine on myself and it worked without any paradoxes, but something went wrong when I sent more than one person back. Technically speaking, I've been working in this lab for 50 years thanks to that time machine. It's how I developed those nanobots. Speaking of which, you're going to need this capsule in 2 years, 7 months and 11 days. You're going to have a nasty form of ocular cancer, so I suggest you take that now. Mei explains, handing Izawa a capsule of nanobots for him to ingest. You're suggesting that those nanobots can sustain them for tens of millions of years. If not longer? Ida questions. Yes. Perhaps they may be around today if you can't fix that device. They'll take the long route. That is if you sent them to a point where the KT event had already occurred and that they aren't in any danger of an extinction event taking place. Then again, there's ice ages, periods of intense global warming due to volcanic activity and unknown pathogens that will evolve through the ages. Despite this, chances are that if they survive this, then they'll be here today. Unless Mei actually finishes the return portal. Ida starts mumbling in a similar fashion to Izuku. Knock that shit off 4 eyes. I just found out I might be related to that useless freak and I don't need you acting like his even shittier replacement. Bakugo snarls. Back with the 7. Ochako walked back into the cave with some large leaves and some food for everyone to eat. Okay, so me and Deku found some fruit as well as some things to help cover everyone. But where is Midoriya? Ibara asked, not seeing their male classmate. Ochako pointed outside. He's out of the cave with some other stuff we found that we can use to keep warm and use. Since we're all, he thought it was better for him to wait outside until it was safe to come back in. Midoriya is truly a nice person, Yui said while taking a leaf and some vines to wrap around her thighs to keep her body covered. Would have been fun to tease him a little more. Both Mina and Setsuna began laughing a bit at the dark green-haired girl's comment. Leave Midoriya alone. He's trying to respect us as people, not as just something to have. Momo lectures the two while trying to tie a leaf around her chest and struggling to keep it in place for her body to not pop out and panic Izuku. I gotcha. Ochako came over and tied the leaf with vines before checking to make sure nothing was able to slip out. Once everyone was in something, Ochako shouted outside to Izuku. You can come back in now, Deku. Everyone's covered. Izuku walked back in and held a bit of a blush still. Though everyone had something covering the important parts, it still felt odd seeing everyone in hardly anything at all. So Mito, did something fun happen when you and Ochako went to get stuff? Mina began teasing with both going red. How do you know about that? My quirk. Setsuna answers Ochako's question while popping the top half of her head off. Very versatile in situations like this. It's also really good for learning things that you do in your alone time. She says the last part with some emphasis for both teenagers to cover their faces. Both Mina and Setsuna began laughing a bit with Momo going over to comfort her friends. Please don't try to tease them as much. They're trying to do what they can in order to keep some form of normality in our situation. Speaking of our situation, we gotta talk about the new situation now since most of our issues are somewhat resolved at the moment. The reptilian girl states this before pointing to Izuku. As of right now, third leg here is the only guy that we know. Granted, I would prefer one a little more daring. I'm more than willing to spread my legs for him. What? Izuku and Ochako shouted with Yui explaining. When you left, these two began talking about a way to hopefully get you two to have an open relationship. Their logic is that since we're the only 7 people at this point in time, it's only natural that we try and populate the world ourselves if by some chance Hatsume can't fix the machine and bring us back. Knowing Hatsume, it could take a while. Izuku let a sigh out knowing that they really could be stuck in this era for a long time, possibly even indefinitely. So with that in mind, we figured that having this like a tuna festival could work in everyone's favor. Mina points this out with both teenagers going silent. Maybe it's more like an all-you-can-eat orgy. Setsuna tried to find a better way to explain it for the other 5 in the cave to hang their heads. This is still a long ways away. I say we wait at least a month before having this discussion again. That should give us more than enough time to investigate this island a bit more and find a stable source of food and water. I'll also make better garments just so it's easier for us to walk around and besides leaves when I have enough energy in me. But our use of quirks could also be extremely vital in this situation, so keep an open mind to how to use them to help our way of life. Momo points this out to somewhat help Izuku's state of mind. Fine. But I want to know what Ochako and Mito thinks about this first. The 5 turn to Izuku and Ochako for them to look for an answer. Well, I don't know. Izuku tried trailing off before Ochako said her bit. Well, if it's okay with all of you, then I guess I can bear with it. Mina and Setsuna began cheering before Ochako spoke up. On one condition. I'm Deku's number 1. I don't care how you all decide after, but I'm his first no matter what. If that's a problem, then I'm not okay with it. Deal? Both shouted with Yui walking out of the cave. Midoriya, can you help me find some water? I haven't seen around yet and you're one of the only people here with a quirk that could come in handy in a pinch. Izuku nodded for both to walk out and head in another direction of the one Izuku and Ochako left in. As they left, Ochako looked at both Ibara and Momo. So you're both fine with this? Honestly, there could be worse men we were trapped in this time with. Also, I know Midoriya is a good person, so we don't have to worry of him doing anything that is wicked in any form. And as long as you're okay with it, I don't see why there's a problem. I will keep your wishes in mind and not abuse the situation however. Ochako smiled at her dark-haired friend for her agreement. To be completely clear, I am only joining to keep those two from disturbing the peaceful relationship you have with Midoriya, Ibara pointed out as they looked over to see the female duo discussing ways for this to work. So me and Deku found some stuff to make a fire and some bananas. Not the most perfect meal, but it will do to keep our energy up. With Izuku and Yui, the two continued their walk until finding a lake that seemed relatively clean. They both took a bit of water out of the pond to notice it was very clear and looked safe enough to drink. This isn't that far from the cave. We should probably use this as our main source of drinking. Perhaps though we should find something to clean the water though. Just as a safety precaution. Wait a second, why couldn't she just make water with her quirk? That would remove any dangers that this could pose. In order for this to happen, Yaoyorozu would need to have the lipids in her body to make it. So to make it simple, she'd need more food just so we can drink water. It's probably safer for us to be able to rely on water that isn't from her since we also don't know much about our food situation yet. Fair enough. Yui said this while trying to adjust the leaves around her chest that were sliding down. Izuku averted eye contact while this happened to notice a stegosaurus coming and drinking out of the lake. You can stop pretending to be nice and avoiding eye contact to save my dignity. It's not like anyone really looks at me like that to begin with. What do you mean? Everyone when they look my way all they see is a plain girl. I don't show emotion, I don't stand out, I honestly have no defining qualities to make me stand out. That's not true. Izuku looked at Yui in the eyes while explaining what he. You're calm and collective, try not to overstep your boundaries, and honestly, you don't need defining features to be able to stand out. You do that already by being yourself. These words touched the size quirk user's heart a bit before seeing Izuku's face go red and turn away. It took her a moment before realizing the leaf on her chest fell off for her chest to be completely exposed. You really are a nice person, Midoriya. Maybe being stuck here with you isn't a bad thing after all. Yui readjusted her makeshift top before getting up. We should probably head back and get something to carry the water back in. Alright. Izuku and Yui returned to the cave and explained what they found for the seven to have one of the biggest necessities out of the way for their survival. Now all they had to do was get accustomed to their life as it was now. Back with Hatsume. As the group continued their survival in the unknown world around them, Hatsume had gone over the schematics she had with Aizawa present to watch and make sure she stayed on track. This was a full-time job since she would normally go off her train of thought to begin something else. So if I adjust this here and then work this here then maybe I can get a react dash. She stopped mid-sentence when a light bulb came in her head. What if I make a support gear that can make things come back from the past? She immediately ran to the other side of the room to try and write down her findings before being grabbed and dragged back by Aizawa's capture gear. You threw 4 of my students into the past along with 3 of Vlad's as far as we know without their consent. I'd be more concerned about doing that before anything. Got it? The pink-haired girl saw the anger in Aizawa's now glowing red eyes before nodding. Understood, sir. She continued her work for another half an hour before trailing off and trying her stunt again for this cycle to be repeated about 20 times that same day. And here I thought Midoriya was the problem child. I need to give Power Loader the respect he deserves dealing with this girl day in and day out. The tired pro thinks this while dropping eye drops in his eyes to help with his quirk being unintentionally used constantly during the day. As he prepared to head out, Ibara followed behind the OFA user. I shall accompany you today in your journey. Perhaps we can find some form of compromise together. Izuku agreed for them to walk out. As they traveled towards the river, Izuku felt a bit awkward after how they woke up today. Sorry about I do not blame you. However, that does not mean I enjoy watching such shameful acts done. Especially while Uraraka is on top of you. That just sounded wrong out of context. Izuku thought this as they arrived at the river. There, Izuku pulled his bow out and pulled an arrow back. I guess now comes the time to see if the practice came in handy. He shot at a fish for the arrow to graze it and make the fish swim out of the way. Dang it. So close. He tried again for it to happen once more. Each time, Izuku was only hairs away for it to fail for them entirely. Ibara sat and watched on one of the rocks beside the river with her eyes starting to close. As Izuku used the last of his arrows, he sighed to pick them all up and realized that they couldn't do much. The vine woman began yawning before dozing off. This unfortunately made her head fall forward with her body becoming off balance. The only thing Izuku heard was a giant splash to turn around and see the vine girl in the water. Cold. She jumped up shivering from the water temperature for Izuku to run over. Are you okay? He stopped mid-sentence to see something that forced his eyes to turn away. Midoriya. Is something the matter? Ibara asked, not sure, with Izuku turning his back to her. Downward. Downward. Ibara looked down to see her garments were not only soaked, but what was underneath was completely translucent. She realized now that Izuku had seen everything on her body to cover her private areas. How dare you! Ibara shouted in shame with Izuku running to get a fire going to dry her clothes out. Come on, work. He kept hitting the rocks he had together for them to not light. Eventually, he tried using OFA to try and think it was because of the lack of strength to do it with this only working against him. The flint rocks he had to make a fire broke for Izuku to grunt in agitation. Dang it! Looking at his electricity, Izuku pondered something in his mind. Could it work? Increasing the usage from 5 to 20%, Izuku tried to light some dead leaves he had with the lightning that surrounded him. There was smoke coming off the leaves before a spark finally caught them and burned a fire and some sticks in the area. Shiozaki, I got a fire going. You can use this to warm up? Izuku sat on the opposite side of the fire for Ibara to walk over and make a wall of vines to avoid Izuku from seeing her. If you so much as peek over that wall, you shall know God's wrath upon you. I won't. I promise. Izuku spoke up, trying to mind his time. Meanwhile, Ibara pulled her clothes off to place the white dress near the fire to get dry. As she did, she sat on the rocky ground near the fire to dry herself off and get warm. Minutes went by with silence between the two. I apologize if I had come off rude to you before. It's not your fault. Any girl in your situation would probably do the same thing. I somehow doubt that with Setsuna and Ishido. Izuku snorted a bit at this for Ibara to show a small smile. It has been 15 days now, hasn't it? Yeah. Ibara was looking at the fire a bit before hearing stomping. What was that? She looked towards the other side of the river to see some dinosaur come out of the forest. In fear, she ran over to grab Izuku and hide in a bush. What she didn't know was she was directly on top of Izuku with nothing on. Shiozaki Shoo. The vine girl shushed Izuku before seeing some carnivorous dinosaurs at the river. They grabbed a few fish from the water to eat and rest for a few minutes. As they finished, they left with the two waiting a few minutes before getting out. I apologize for the sudden act, but things were rather difficult. Izuku nodded before turning to the white dress that was now dry and gave it back to Ibara. Why, you may wanna, he put this on. Looking down, the vine girl realized what she did to quickly grab and put her dress back on. You can look now. Izuku turned back to see her clothed again and somewhat safe to see without any unintended thoughts coming to his head. I am sorry you keep getting stuck with these situations today. Is the only thing you can say be an apology? Sorry. Izuku looked down before Ibara walked up to him. I just don't think it's right. It's not that I don't find you attractive, but it's more I don't wish to abuse any trust you may give me. You're a nice person, so I want to make sure you're respected. Ibara began to blush a bit before turning around. I can accept that logic. It's nice to know you would honor the trust from us instead of the sins of the flesh. She put her fingers together while her hair started to move and knot up a bit. Wait a minute. Izuku knelt down to see where the vines in Ibara's hair knotted for him to get an idea. Shiozaki. Is there any chance you could make your hair grow a few more feet? Certainly, but what for? I'll show you. Izuku began knotting the vines together for the vine girl to understand now what he meant and helped. When they finished, Ibara severed the knotted parts from her for a vine net to be shown. Alright, I need you to hold this half and I'll go to the other side of the river with the other half. Izuku jumped in the water for him to move to the other side of the river. To add weight, they both put rocks on the bottom of the lower end and walked the net up the river. After a few feet, they obtained quite the haul for them to have fish for the rest of the day. Amazing! How did you come up with this? When I was making the fire, I used the lighting from my quirk to create the sparks needed and I kinda didn't know if it would work with your hair as well. Fortunately it did and now we can at least avoid any more danger from this. Thank you Shiozaki. Ibara blushed a bit before speaking. Why you can just call me Ibara. Ibara. Thank you. Hearing this made the vine girl's heart flutter for some reason before they left to return to the cave successful. When they entered, Momo was able to prepare a small stone board for them to cut and salt the fish in order to preserve them for a longer time. That night, they ate like kings and queens, or at least something close to that given their situation. Ibara though had sat closer to Izuku to gain the attention of Mina and Setsuna. It's been almost a month since the events that had happened to the 7 of Class A and B with there still being no report on even if they're okay or not. Daily, their class reps would head over to the support course just to see how things are going. Today was one of those days for Ida and Kendo. We apologize for the inconvenience. Thank you for the update power loader sir. Ida says this with a karate chop while Kendo bows at their teacher. Not a problem. I hope we have something for you tomorrow. As the two walked away, Ida felt rather uneasy. I hope my friends are okay. Kendo looked at the engine quirk user confused as he tried to make it sound a tad better. My apologies. I'm aware that 3 of your friends are also trapped here. I did not mean to burden you with my problems. It's okay. I know how you feel. I'm worried about Yui and Ibara as well. Setsuna though, to be honest, I think she's having a field day being in the past with a bunch of overgrown lizards. She's a fan of reptiles? Her quirk kinda makes her like a lizard and she has a huge reptile interest. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if she's riding a dinosaur right now. The two thought of an image of the reptile lover riding a tyrannosaurus while it ran through the area to somewhat laugh a bit. Hopefully Midoriya and Uraraka are alright. Yaoyorozu and Ishido as well. Though knowing her, she's probably thinking something along the lines of we're in the past. So let's get down to repopulating the Earth or something. Wouldn't that term beat populate though? I mean they would be deemed the first humans. To be honest, I don't know what goes on in that girl's mind half the time. They kept walking until a disturbing thought came to the large fist quirk user's mind. Oh crap, she's in the past with Midoriya. He's probably falling victim to her advances right now and mentally losing it. Back with the 7. The group had begun gathering more food with the recent success of Ibara and Izuku's idea giving them now the full set of nutrients they'd need. The group began separating the work they'd have now thanks to their success. Ochako and Yui would gather water, Momo and Mina would gather fruits and vegetables, Ibara and Setsuna would be in charge of fishing, and Izuku would be in charge of carrying wood and maintenance when they would need certain things fixed. That should do it. Izuku says this while placing a set of logs by the cave they had before pulling an axe out that Momo had made for them to chop wood a bit easier with. Izuku began breaking the pieces with his quirk active to cut the wood even though it was still not dried out. This worked as both support and relief for him due to the tension of being in the situation they were in. Hey Izuku! Check it out. Izuku looked up to see Setsuna riding a dinosaur. This is awesome. Be careful you don't hurt yourself. If you do, we don't have a doctor. I tried to tell her that. Ibara says this while dragging a bunch of fish inside her vines from the river. Do you need a little help? Thank you. Izuku jammed the axe in a log before picking up the haul of fish for the vine quirk user. I'm sorry that you must do the work we are supposed to do. It's okay. Manual labor isn't that bad for me. The two watched Setsuna ride the head of the dinosaur like it was some sort of horse. So what possessed her to do this? She wanted to ride the dinosaur and said she'd never get the chance to if she wouldn't hear. Live the dream. The two snickered at Izuku's comment before he placed the fish inside the cave. I'll get to salting them so they don't go bad. Ibara took a sniff of Izuku before holding her nose. You may wish to clean yourself in the lake over here. You are starting to smell. Sorry. Izuku walked out for Ibara to continue her work. Soon after, Mina walked in with some of the fruit she was told to grab broken. Mina, why is this fruit damaged? I kinda wanted to swing on a vine and accidentally hit Yamamoto when she was carrying our fruit. She said this in a bit of a laugh while being asked a different question. Where is Momo now? At the lake we're using to bathe. She got covered in fruit and wanted to wash it off before she started feeling sticky. I'm gonna go see about joining her. Mina placed the fruit inside the cave before heading out. The thought of probably the most developed girl there and one of the two perverts that would be interested in doing certain acts being in the same area that Izuku would be without clothes somewhat scared Ibara for Izuku's sake. Please Lord, have Izuku find out this atrocity that will befall him before it's too late. Izuku began to step into it with his pants to the side, sighing in relief. Not the greatest feel, but it's not the coldest it could be. Taking a moment, the OFA Quirk user grabbed his garment to run it through the water to get the lingering sweat off that so there was at least some sort of cleanliness to it. When that was done, Izuku held his breath to go under the water. As he did, he moved around a bit to try and get the oils on his body off and pull off the dried sweat a bit more. He also began running his hands around his body to try and act a bit as if he was scrubbing to clean himself off. When he got up above water, he noticed he was a bit away from where he was originally and overheard someone. She just had to swing on the vines. Do you even realize it took me hours to find some of that? It sounded like Momo for Izuku to look over and notice her inside the lake as well behind a bush that was near them. Izuku splashed a bit to cause some noise for Momo to look over. Hello. She began walking over to try and find out who or what this was for Izuku to try and swim away. Gotta hide. He tried going underwater to try and move away. As he did, he tried opening his eyes to be met by the creation Quirk user's lower half right in front of him. Gaha! He shouted underneath for Momo to see the bubbles. Who's there? She reached down to pull up an arm to see Izuku coughing up water. Midoriya? It's not what it looks like. I swear he stopped when he saw the dark-haired woman go completely red. Looking down, he noticed why to have them both scream. Covered themselves and turned away to hold a complete blush on their faces. Why are you in the lake? I was trying to clean off the sweat on my body so I wouldn't stink. Why you here? Weren't you and Mina supposed to gather fruit? She swung into me while on a vine and covered me in broken pieces of fruit. I came here to wipe it off before it dried and made me sticky as well as attract flies. Both didn't look around, but Izuku was able to have a full glance of his classmate's hourglass and seemingly perfect body. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. His mind began imagining the image the best he could before throwing his lower half under the water. Now isn't the time for that. He cried as his body began betraying his kind mind and thinking of unsettling images inside his head. Why was that right there for me to see? Momo had a similar issue when seeing Izuku's body. She had seen it before regularly and was for the most part fine with seeing his muscles, but not with seeing his third leg. Stop thinking those thoughts. She threw her body into the water with her head down below the surface to try and cool it off. Sorry. I thought I was alone. Izuku tried to apologize for Momo to pull her head up. It's not your fault. Neither of us knew the other was here. An unsettling silence was between them with Izuku trying to think of a way to change the subject. So, how are things looking for hunting and gathering from your perspective? We seem to be able to survive the best we can for now. I think we can slow down and still survive for easily a month with what we have if we can't gather anything for a few days. That's good. Both smiled before remembering what they talked about during the beginning in regards to their situation. So that means we're secure? Why yes. I don't think we'll have problems as of now. They both remained silent before hearing another voice. Few hours later, everyone was sitting down with the act at the lake still fresh in the three's minds. The silence was broken when Ochako pulled something out. Check it out. I found my phone. Wait, you found a phone? Yui asked for her to nod. So does it work? Give it here. Maybe I can figure out if it does or not. Momo said this for Ochako to pass the phone to her. She opened the inside to find that the hardware seemed to look fine. It doesn't look damaged, but I'm almost certain the battery in it is dead. Why don't we try making a charger for it? Setsuna suggested for an idea to pop into the creation user's head. Mina, can you make me some acid with a low pH on it but not enough to melt metal and place it into metallic cartridges I give you? Sure. The pink-skinned girl was given a few small containers for her to do this before a lid was made with an adhesive that wouldn't melt away. Once this was done, Momo made a casing around it with a cord able to be used for the type of phone they had. Hopefully this works. Momo says for everyone to wait a few minutes before the phone came on. It worked. They all shouted for Momo to go into the dial settings. If I can explain the situation to my family, hopefully we can have some of our greatest hands on getting us home and ending this horrible nightmare we're in. She tried to do this while entering in her mother's phone number before trying to call it. She waited a moment before she heard nothing to look at the message on the phone to say, no connection. Sigh of course this didn't work. Everyone held their heads down realizing the silver lining of hope was no different than a dud now. It was at least worth a shot. But we did find out we can make batteries now. Maybe we can make flashlights now and maybe some other things to at least make this easier on us. Izuku said this to cheer Momo up a little. Well, that failed, but we can at least see what Ochako's screen is. Mina said while presenting a picture of her and Izuku that they took on one of their first days at UA. Ochako tried to take back the phone for Mina to run around with it, making gags about how bad of a crush the gravity quirk user actually had on Izuku before confessing at the beginning of all this mess. Everyone smiled a bit before Izuku was thrown the phone and tackled by Ochako. Well, it looks like we're still going with option 2 of repopulating the Earth. Mina said while laughing to get Ibara to speak up. It isn't repopulating if we are the only humans that existed yet. Mina laughed this off with Setsuna laughing as well. Meanwhile, Izuku and Ochako realized this meant they would soon be doing such acts soon and perhaps even starting a family. They blushed a bit before sitting back up and next to one another in embarrassment. Izuku turned around to cover his lower half with Ochako covering her own and chest. Sorry. I thought I was alone. Why are you here, Deku? I just wanted to swim. And nothing else. The two remained silent before Ochako let a sigh out. Sorry. I didn't think anyone would be here. It's okay. I thought the same. Silence was between them with Ochako asking something. Hey Deku, you've been slouching a lot lately. Are you okay? Well, sorta. What do you mean, sorta? Izuku moved away with Ochako turning towards him. If you're not okay, then you need to tell us. We're not in a spot where pretending you're okay is a good thing. Izuku kept creeping away for Ochako to hug him. Izuku! It was at this point Ochako felt something on her wrist. Looking down, she saw something bulge out of the water and pushed up on her. Izuku let go and knelt into the ocean. So that's what you meant? Izuku nodded before explaining. I didn't have a lot of female interaction outside of my mom growing up, and I haven't been able to do something about this, so I've been holding back. Ochako thought about this while Izuku tried to redirect the conversation to something else. It's not a problem though. We can just ignore that this happened and dash. So you're frustrated? Izuku held his head down and nodded. Well, we did talk about this and stuff, so? Ochako trailed off before saying something Izuku wouldn't expect. We're dating, so why would it be a problem? Besides, we did agree to wait till we're stable enough before doing something crazy like this. We're able to survive now with not as many problems, so... Izuku got up to look at Ochako. Izuku and Ochako rested on the shoreline, still trying to calm themselves from what just happened. Both had a smile on their faces while enjoying the other's embrace. Feeling better? Ochako asked for Izuku to smile. Very. They kept relaxing before they heard some kind of snorting. They looked up to see what looked like a boar eating from the grass near the beginning of the jungle. I didn't know boars existed in the Cretaceous period. Wait, they're not supposed to? Both had their stomachs growl a bit with the taste of nothing but fish and fruit somewhat getting old. They stared down the boar with a hungry eye, wanting it to be their meal tonight. Here, piggy. Come to Ochako. The two tackled the boar to the ground with a squeal being heard from it to startle some birds. Few hours later, Izuku and Ochako returned to the cave with the boar tied up and already dead on Izuku's back. When they got there, they noticed Momo milking a cow outside. Where'd the cow come from? Found it? Yui says while Momo finishes a bucket of milk. I don't understand it either, but fresh milk at least? Momo says, stretching and petting the giant animal's head as a thank you. Still think Yamamo's milk would be much more tasty than some cows. Hey Izuku, why don't you try milking her udders? Setsuna said for Momo to begin holding a blush. Well, I guess we all have something to be satisfied with tonight, Izuku states while pulling the boar off of his back. We're eating good tonight? Ibara gave a prayer for the dead beast as an apology and thank you for his noble sacrifice before noticing Ochako barely able to stand and Izuku no longer slouching. What happened to the both of you? You both seem to be different. Oh well, you know, we were doing something kinda difficult and Setsuna looked at Ochako and smelled something off to her. Realizing what this was, the limb-pulling quirk user gave a sly remark. I guess we're going to stuff a second roast tonight. Both Izuku and Ochako went red knowing they were found out. Alright, Izuku and Ochako finally did it. Time for the next step. Mina shouted for joy with Setsuna joining her for the excitement. Why does this keep happening with these two? Everyone thought while Izuku brought the boar inside the cave. In the present era, Hatsume had worked tirelessly on the project to return the 7 she sent back in time back with Aizawa only having her stop to sleep, eat, and use the restroom and nothing else. In his own words, she caused this problem, so this will be her first priority as to a project. He was also given the authorization to expel her if the situation became worse than it already was. But he'd rather wait to do anything pointless like this at the moment until the job was done. If he did, the chances of the first years trapped in the past staying there was almost a certain fact. So I have some good news to the progress and some bad news. Hatsume pointed this out for Aizawa to put some eye drops in his eyes. What's the bad and what's the good? So the bad news is I can't do anything to help them unless I have some way to lock on them specifically. If I can't, it would be no different than just warping some random thing and hoping it's them. Then how do you do that? The only way I could do this is by having them set up a transmitter that would require them to have knowledge in high-level science that is on level with space scientists. So you can kinda say this won't work. Also, even if I were to send them the item, they would have to almost entirely set it up themselves. So for now, you can't bring them back. Aizawa clarified this for Hatsume to nod. On a positive note, I can send things back in time for them. Could send them a care package consisting of food, water and supplies that would make it easier on them. I'm leaving to get more coffee. Hatsume looked at the pot. He had to realize it was completely empty. Geez, this guy has no ability to stay up. That's like his 5th pot. As she began doing this, she found some stuff to do a wireless router and began hooking it up to the school's Wi-Fi with a crazy strong adapter for it. They can't be angry at me if they can watch TV. Back with the 7. The group began working like they always do with trying to get their way of life as of lately still functional. As they did, Izuku and Momo were paired up today to do a few things to keep their basic needs handled. Alright, the food's salted and kept in a safe spot. Izuku smiled at Momo while finishing his own task. I'm almost done over here with Mumu. They decided to name their newly found cow Mumu due to the fact they'd need it around. In this act, Izuku had a brilliant idea to try and begin making a bit of a farming area for them to start growing some greens due to the fact they'd run out eventually and need some source for them to gain nutrients they would require to survive. The girls agreed and had seeds from every plant they had set to the side as well as items to begin the process made thanks to Momo. Are you doing okay today, Mumu? How do you feel? The creation quirk user asked the cow in a caring manner for it to turn towards her and lick her face in a loving manner. Seems she likes you a lot? Asterisk to asterisk, let's hope she's that kind to all of us. They continued their work before everyone began to return to the cave with their tasks complete. Everything seemed fine for the most part until Yui and Ibara, who were on water gathering duty today, came running over. We've got a problem. What do you mean? Where's the water? Don't tell me you're slacking, you two. Like you're the one to talk, Mina. The two caught their breath before answering. We can't use the water anymore from the lake we've been using. This surprised everyone to start heading over to the lake. When they got there, they saw the lake was pitch black. What happened? It's all black and icky. Ochako asked for Shiozaki to explain. We do not know. We were coming here earlier today to try and get the water when we noticed some strange black stuff inside it. We tried to find out what it was, but we can't find what it is. All that we can say is that this might not be safe to drink anymore. Momo knelt down to the water to pick up some in her hand and smell it. Smells like oil. Wait, what? Oil exists in this time? Setsuna asked for the creation quirk user to explain. Shouldn't, but that's not the issue here. Right now, we don't have a natural source of water we can use. We might be able to survive, but Mumu and our farm needs water. So what should we do? Momo pondered on Mina's question before getting an idea. We'll filter the water in the ocean. Midoriya and myself shall go and create a water filtration system on the beach while the rest of you go find another area we may be able to pull water from. Best case, we find another and the filtration system works. Worst, we need to find a way to get water within the next few days. On the beach, Izuku and Momo found themselves at the beach and began getting to work. Midoriya, while I begin making the fist ration system, can you obtain for me some dry logs to use for a fire as well as some seawater? Sure. Izuku did as he was asked to bring a log that he was able to chop into smaller pieces with his axe. When he got a fire going, he started to grab some water with the buckets they brought. Where do you want the water? Just to the side is fine. Momo said this while finishing creating a small system for the purification out of her chest. When she did, she started to work with putting the pieces together. The only two ways we can succeed in separating the water and salt in this case are either thermal dilution or membrane separation. Since it would take more effort for us to do the second, we're going to use thermal dilution since all we would need is something to hold the steam in, a pot that we can heat, and a fire. Momo finished the process for Izuku to ask about the process. So how long will this take? We'll be here a while. But this is far better than taking our chances and thinking that we'll find another lake that we can drink from so easily. The two sat on the beach for roughly about 20 minutes with them constantly working to make sure the water they collected was deposited into something that was free of the salt. Eventually, a question came to Izuku's head. Hey Yaoyorozu, why do you still call me Midoriya? Is that a problem? Well, not exactly. But I was just curious since basically everyone else here already calls me Izuku and Momo let out a sigh before answering. It's not that I don't find you a nice person, but I feel like if I lose my ability to hold the normality of our daily life, we won't be able to return to it. What do you mean? Tell me, do you honestly think we can continue like nothing ever happened if and when we ever get back to our time? The OFA user didn't know what to say as Momo continued. As of right now, we're alone with Mina and Setsuna acting like this is some kind of vacation. Yui seems to act indifferent to this. You and Ochako act like this is some kind of honeymoon for the two of you. And Ibara, well, I'm sure the marriage she tried to do the other day explains it. I for one think she believes this is an Adam and Eve times 6 scenario. Izuku remembered how their vine quirk friend tried to marry him and Ochako to at least keep their form of sexual encounter in some form of wedlock and prevent Mina and Setsuna from doing something in fear of acting on infidelity. So you think we're not taking this at all as seriously as we should? Am I wrong? Momo stared with a bit of annoyance at Izuku for him to explain something. We're all scared out of our minds right now thinking that we'll be stuck here forever. At least trying to give some sort of relief knowing everyone else here feels the same way and trying to have some form of normality to our new daily lives is the best we can do. I right now am scared out of my mind I'll never see my mom again. Ochako's scared out of her mind she'll never see her parents again. Everyone has someone back home that they're afraid they'll never see again. But thinking like that right now isn't helping us. So please ease up and don't think we're doing this to take what's happening as a joke. We're trying to take this as seriously as possible and try not to worry about the reality we're in as much as we are Yaoyorozu. Momo heard this to smile and lay back in the sand. Momo, excuse me? If you're going to have me call you by your first name, have the decency to call me by mine. Izuku nodded while replying. Okay, Momo. The two started to laugh before the sound of stomping was heard. Did you hear that? I did, and it sounded big. The sound of the stomps came closer and closer until they realized what they were facing. Ruera! Run! The two ran as fast as they could with the Tyrannosaurus hot on their trail, stomping on their purification setup in the process. It's gaining on us. Momo tried to run faster before a sharp pain in her ankle made her tip. Izuku grabbed her and activated full cowling to get them away from the gigantic dinosaur. He unfortunately didn't see a small opening to a cave for them to fall into. Hold on. Momo did as he said and created a few air cushions to help stop them from meeting a grisly demise as they fell into the dark cave. With the others, the five were returning from their sweep of the island, finding next to nothing and eventually stopping to avoid losing track of where they came from for the day. Well, that sucked. You're telling me, Setsuna. My feet were already sore today. Mina said this while sliding her feet on the ground and making a trail in the dirt. Let's just hope Momo and Deku did better. Ochako hoped before Ibara saw something in the distance. Does anyone see what I see? Yui looked up and saw what looked like a few crates. It can't be. The five went up to the crate to find a note on the side of it. Students, do not be alarmed. The staff of Yui and Hatsume are trying their hardest to bring you back. As of right now, we can send supplies to you all so that you can survive a tad easier. Inside, we have enough rations and water to last you about a month. Hopefully you have found some other sources of nutrients, but in case there is a danger of water, we have put inside the best water filtration system we can offer along with some supplies for personal use along with blankets and pillows. Stay safe, Mr. Aizawa. Well, that saves our water problems. Ochako smiled while the girls opened the crate to pull out the supplies. They even put a Wi-Fi router and computer in here. Awesome. Setsuna said this while pulling out the stuff and a small note from Hatsume about it. When Izuku and Momo return, we should tell them that the issue is no longer needed to fear. Alright then, let's get this stuff back before it gets dark. The five put the side of the crate back on and begin pushing it back towards the cave, unaware of the fate of their two classmates who had suffered a frightening encounter with one of the most dangerous land animals that ever existed in history. That should do it. Mina let a sigh of relief out after the supplies that they had were brought to the cave. Man, wish Izuku was here. He'd make this job a whole lot easier. Yeah. Shame he went with Momo? As they put the supplies where they could, Yui started to look at the pieces of the electronics with some confusion. So what should we do with these? Who knows about computers? I gotcha. Setsuna took the electronics and began putting it together. In a matter of a few minutes, she was able to hook up the router, Wi-Fi, computer and some games and apps for them to enjoy. Wait, how did you put that together so fast? Ochako asked for the dark green-haired girl to smile. I'm a bit of a whiz at tech stuff. I also got Hulu on so we can watch stuff as well as some games. Anyone here play Skyrim? The girls were silent for Setsuna to let a sigh out. Of course I'm the only one who plays it. But anyway, we've got some entertainment. Izuku and Momo will be hyped when they find this out. Speaking of Deku and Momo, I wonder how they're holding up? Ochako asks while Ibara finds a loaf of bread that felt very fresh for her to pray for the offering she was given. With Izuku and Momo. After the fall, the two found themselves inside a cave with next to no lighting. Where am I? Izuku started to wake up to see Momo giving a sigh of relief. Good. You're awake. Izuku looked around to try and find out where he was before being explained what happened to them. We fell into a cave that was on the beach. It went downwards and we nearly died. Trying to sit up, the OFA user glanced down to see Momo pulling weight off one of her legs. Are you okay? It's just a sprain. I was more worried you might have gotten a concussion. Fortunately, that isn't the case from what I can tell. Izuku tried to get up before Momo stopped him. It's probably better if you lay back and rest. Right now isn't the time for us to start moving out. How long have we been down here? I don't know. Maybe an hour or two. Izuku opened his arm for Momo to lay down and calm herself. Thank you. For what? Helping me when I needed it? Momo started to blush a bit before replying. It's nothing. I just did what any hero would do in the moment. Still, I really appreciate it. Momo laid on Izuku's chest and smiled a bit. As they relaxed a little, they both had the time to talk and began finding out a bit more about the two and what their family life is like. Izuku learned that Momo lived a relatively sheltered life where her friends were not so easily made. Her parents were very scared for her well-being and decided to homeschool her for a while until middle school, where she went to an all-girls school. She didn't dislike what her parents did, but she did feel like they were a little overprotective. Meanwhile, Izuku explained how he didn't have that many friends growing up and that the friends he made in UA were some of the best people he could have met. As they continued, Momo started to ask a very strange question. So Izuku, started to fiddle with her thumbs a bit before answering. What do you think, of me? Not strange, am I? Izuku smiled to pat her head. An hour later, Izuku and Momo returned to camp with everyone running towards them. Deku, are you both okay? Ochako asked, seeing a bit of blood on Izuku's head and Momo on his back with an ankle bandaged up a bit. Okay. Just had a bit of a run-in with a T-Rex. The two went in to see the water bottles and the electronics to be somewhat surprised. Where'd you all get this? Hatsume was able to send it here. Isn't it awesome? Momo smiled a bit while Izuku put her down near Mina and Setsuna. However, his lower half started to hurt a bit for him to bend down in pain. Meanwhile, back at Yui, Mineta had tried to peek on the girls with a feeling of anger for some reason rushing over him. Weird. I had the strangest feeling I'd want Midoriya dead right now. He was brought out of this by the girls of Class A and be finding him and beginning to chase him down. Get back here, you little perv. Mineta continued to run until he tripped over a rake that was conveniently placed to hit him in the head before being grabbed by the girls and given a brutal beating the likes of which he barely recovers from. This one hurt. He says this remembering that this is now the 8th beatdown in a matter of 4 days. Several who knew him were a little questionable whether he'd ever learn his lesson while seeing him tied up and held to an inch of his life. Days continued to pass for the 7 as they slowly became more modernized. Thanks to their water filtration system, the group had found a way to start agriculture a bit. It would be some time until things would grow, but they weren't in as much of a rush. During this, Izuku also started to make a few corrales for Mumu and some other animals that they discovered. Arguably, the strangest thing they found had to be chickens that were in the area. In little to no time though, the 7 seemed to somewhat get their lives back on track. Meanwhile, Mina and Setsuna began working on a plan to get their friends Yui and Ibara into the thought of sleeping with Izuku. Man, I gotta get the Virgin Queen to join in. The two decided with rock, paper, scissors with Mina losing. Sorry, guess it's my win. Tell ya what, I won't ask Yui to join until you're done getting Ibara. She walked away with the acid quirk user noticing Ibara walk out of the cave. Hey Ibara, got a sec? I was going to bathe. What would you like? I just want to talk. The two walked into the wilderness towards where they normally take baths while starting a conversation. So we got pretty modern in the past few days. I do not personally enjoy that Setsuna has a pastime of such trivial matters, but it has come in handy for this. Mina smirked before pulling the vine girl in. Mina, what are you doing? Look Ibara, the situation right now is kinda crazy, but maybe we can make this into a nice experience. I am not a dirty harlot as you believe me to be. I never said you were nor did I think that. But didn't life in the Bible start with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden? Ibara looked at Mina curious. What are you implying? I'm saying that right now, this is our Eden and Izuku is the Adam to our Eve. Would you like to be the first of humanity to repent for the sins you have committed and light the way to redemption? If it was anything like the Bible, then you would be Lilith right now, trying to condemn me from my faith and walk me down the path of unholiness. Thank you for this conversation, but I shall end it here. She walked away angered for Mina to groan in annoyance. She's so stubborn. We're literally going to be here forever. The least she can do is help with keeping us from dying of boredom. Later at the lake, Ibara had sat on a rock pouring water over herself in annoyance. The nerve of that woman, trying to use my faith as a tool to commit sin. If I had a pastor right now, I would convey all my anger towards her and ask for forgiveness from them. She tried to calm herself knowing being mad at her pink-skinned friend wasn't worth the fight and would not solve the real issue right now. Sigh she was correct however. We are trapped here with only us as the humans. She looked between her legs for a moment before thinking. Would this truly be like the Garden of Eden though? And if it was like Adam and Eve, would I actually be able to? Izuku looked at the chaos that occurred with this incident to see smiles on all 3 of the girls' faces. Well, nobody's gonna believe this one. You've got that right. Izuku turned to see Ochako with Momo and Yui. She seemed really embarrassed with Momo unable to speak to what they witnessed and Yui holding a rather large nosebleed for some reason. How long were you three here for? About the time Mina had vines inside her anal cavity. Momo says, still amazed of Ibara's dirty self. Can someone tell me how this happened? I kinda wanna see it happen again. Yui says this for everyone to look at her. I have my own interests and, I kinda wanted to try a three-way with a boy and a girl for a while now. So she's that type of girl, huh? Everyone thought as Ibara spasmed with Izuku's contents spilling out of her. I have a bad feeling that will come back and bite me in the ass soon. Izuku sighed remembering how he didn't pull out to maybe succeed in impregnating the Vine Girl. As the group in the past continued their work to try and gain some normality from the modern era, Hatsume and everyone in the present continued their work to try and return their friends to the time they're from. Mineta and Kaminari, on the other hand, had different ideas. Come on. At least try to make something where we can go back in time to where they are. Yeah. Why does Midoriya get to hang with some hot babes? I want to be in my own harem and get to touch a bunch of hot chicks' boobs too. Mineta started to cry tears of blood while Hatsume kept working on her invention with the supervision of Aizawa. Sorry, can't do living beings. I can only do non-living things. But I might be able to open up a video chat if they've got the computer and router going. Aizawa nodded at this before calling the entire classes of 1A and 1B to give them some comfort that their friends were safe and sound. Back with the 7. The group began sitting in the cave trying to make sense of what had happened earlier. So you two tried to mock Ibara and she began to use her vines to do what she did to you while Midoriya was asked by Ibara to violate her? Momo asked, trying to come to reality with what they had said. Kinda. Pretty much. I am ashamed of myself for what I have done. Ibara held her head down while being placed on a rock by Izuku since she couldn't walk so well. I will admit though, I didn't know she had it in her. Setsuna started laughing before Ai moved the wrong way, feeling a sharp pain shoot through her body. Damn it, she got me good. If it is any consultation to keep you from getting mad. The lobster traps Ibara made worked and we have a few lobsters to eat. Oh, I'm not mad. Frankly, I don't know what to think about what happened. So long as it was consensual. Momo explained with Ochako trying to comfort Izuku who was somewhat ashamed of himself. It's okay, Deku. We all kinda knew someone would screw up somewhere. Granted, we had no idea it would be Ibara of all people and kinda expected it to be Setsuna or Mina. She mumbled the last part before getting to her point. But none of us look at you worse than we did before. You're still a really good guy. Besides, Ibara did ask for it. To be honest, I kinda wanna look at you with some more satisfaction seeing how well of a fuck you gave Lady of the Holy Vine here. Setsuna added her bit with Ibara holding her vines up prepared to give her another taste of her own medicine. Please at least wait till I have a chance to taste Izuku here with my front please. My ass is still sore. I need something to relax myself. Momo went out to their mini garden to grab some tea leaves that they planted a little while back as a way to help give them some things they were craving. Momo specifically wanted this due to the fact that she couldn't enjoy one of her pastimes in this era. As they kept talking, a call was received on the computer for them to click to open it up. Hey everyone. Hatsume was on the other side with the members of Class A and B beside them. Hatsume. Everyone shouted with some agitation at the support course girl. Now I know you all might be kinda mad at me for doing this, but trust me when I say I'm working on it as best I can. And I'm monitoring her. Aizawa came near the screen to help them understand that he was on the case. I trust there's been no problems as of yet, problem child? Oh, none at all, except for the man-eating dinosaurs, the lake that is on fire due to last week's lightning bolt and the fact that I found out in the worst way possible that I have an allergy to latex. Izuku responds sarcastically. Not gonna ask how you found that last one out, but it sounds like nothing you 7 can't handle. Was that a joke? The girls shouted in anger. The fact you're not dead is more than enough proof you can handle it. As for the flaming lake, it probably has crude oil in it and you probably could make a filtration system to separate the oil from the lake and start refining it to gasoline to power generators. Considering the fact that we're speaking via a computer and a time difference of 66 million years, I say you were successful. How did you? I was in the same fucking position when Power Loader did this to me, Mike, Midnight and Miss Joke. I still haven't gotten him back for it. Aizawa replies, gritting his teeth and glaring at Power Loader, who probably had this idea in the first place. The Bakugu came directly in front of the cam to shout at Izuku. You better not have gotten laid yet. You hear me? I'll fucking kill you. Predictable, you can barely see us for 10 seconds yet you think you can come back in time and kill one of us. Did this guy win a stupid contest or something? Yui retorts for this to only fuel the Ash Blonde's anger. What did you say to me, you emo-looking bitch? I'll fucking murder you. He was stopped when Kendo karate chopped his neck to knock Bakugu out. Sorry about him. Seems I'm doing double the work now keeping this one in line as well today. She states while holding both Bakugu and Monoma unconscious in her hands. So back to the reality of our situation. How long do you think it will be before you can return us to when we came from? Hatsume shrugged at Ochako while answering. I don't know. What kind of woman sends people to the past and does not have any idea on how to return them to the present? Ibara was fumed by this answer. It's not that simple, damn it. I have to figure out the exact position of the Earth 66 million years ago, then triangulate the exact place you will be to open a portal back to this time. Oh, and if I miss a single number, I could accidentally spawn a black hole in your backyard. Give me a break. Nobody could answer back to this as they were already getting migraines, realizing fighting with her now won't do any good for their current situation. Anyway, we all just wanted to make sure you all were alive and there's no real issue with you all. Goodbye. Midoriya, you bastard. You had to have gotten laid in your situation. Mineta came in front, angered with blood running down his cheeks from his eyes. I should be the one there getting to feel up some hot melons instead of you. I hope you die. Aizawa wrapped Mineta in his capture gear before trying to end the call again. Mineta. 3 out of 6. Is all he replies, causing the grape's eyes to start to bleed even more. Alright, I think we're done here. Goodbye. The screen shut off. The girls turned to Izuku, who was somewhat smirking at the face Mineta made. What? At least we can have some satisfaction. In what? Well, maybe we can have a little fun with this. Momo went to the computer and began typing up an email to send to Hatsume before smiling and sitting down satisfied with herself. What did you write? Mina asks. Momo smirks, looking over at the pink-skinned girl. Remember when we found Mineta in Uraraka's locker back after the cultural festival? Wait, the pervert tried to do something in Uraraka's locker? Izuku was somewhat surprised but more enraged at this comment. Momo gave an evil smirk, causing Izuku to swallow a lump in his throat. He was only stopped when Setsuna pulled him to motion to go outside the cave. Since she couldn't really walk yet, Izuku put her on his back and walked out. So what's up? Look, I want to say first off that me and Mina are sorry for dragging you into something we tried to get Ibara to do. Well, I think she already kinda made you both regret it somewhat. Oh, trust me, this isn't me regretting it. Setsuna laughed a bit before getting back on topic. So I wanted to point this out to you since we're kinda trying to get the ball rolling on this. Me and Mina are trying to get the girls to sleep with you. Now the other person that is giving us problems is Yui. Why? It's what she wants in exchange for doing it with you. Flashback to a few hours ago. Setsuna and Yui are seen having a conversation while finishing up their task of the day. So basically, we want to get you in bed with Izuku. That way, we can have an alternative route to go if things go south with let's get back to our present idea. Yui remained neutral before answering. I accept. Wow. Kinda thought you'd be more harder of a nut to crack. On one condition. Setsuna looked over before Yui started to get close to her face. I want to have you involved in this. Why? You see, I'm not one to be picky of who I'm attracted to. Women. I really don't care as long as I enjoy them. If I had it my way, Kendo would just so happen to slip onto her time machine and get sent back with us and I can scissor her for the next 66 million years. Frankly, I think we're taking the long way home. Back in the cave. About 2 days had passed with the group surviving their little ordeal rather well. Since their ability to survive in this era is now second nature to all of them, some of the group began working on projects to make things a tad more luxurious to them. For Izuku, he thought it was best to try and make a bit of a better living arrangement. Sure, the girls were able to sleep on him during the night and avoided the need to sleep on the cold floor of the cave, but that doesn't mean it wasn't uncomfortable for them. As such, he started collecting long grass and cutting it to dry it out and make hay for them to form into a bit of a bed. The last 2 days were abnormally hot for it to dry out rather quickly in the spot the OFA user had set up. Alright, seems like this should be enough to start the trial experiment. He grabbed as much hay as he could carry in a bag, before walking towards the cave. There, he had a large cloth that he asked Momo to make some time back, as well as some sewing needles and thread to stuff it. Since the fabric was made rather thick, the chances of the hay coming out and sticking someone in their sleep was unlikely to make things go rather nicely. That should do it. That should do what? Izuku freaked when he noticed Yui's head right next to him and jumped back about a foot. Yui. Sorry about that reaction. You kinda scared me there. Quite alright. But may I ask what this is? She pointed at the overgrown stuffed sack in front of her. Well, I was trying to make a bed so we all don't have to sleep on the floor. I'm not sure if you girls are comfortable with where we sleep, so I wanted to at least offer a different option if it was uncomfortable for you. Yui pushed her hands down into the makeshift bed for her hands to sink down fairly easily. Rather easy to sink into? Yeah, I kind of figured that. I put mainly hay in it, so it's natural that it would be doing that. Work in progress though. As they spoke, Setsuna began walking in to greet everyone while eating a few berries. Wow too. She spoke, having her mouth full of food before seeing the bed and swallowing everything. Awesome. A bed. The self-amputating quirk user charged at it and jumped up to fall deep in with her top half being submerged inside it. This was not what I planned for. I'll stuff more in it when more hay is ready. For now though, it's an alternative to sleeping on the floor. Setsuna sat up to look at the bed before rolling around to try and flatten it a little to have something to avoid her sinking. When she finished, the bed lost about half its bulk while also having some restriction of an indent with people laying on it. That should do for now. But do you think it's big enough for the 7 of us? Once again, a work in progress. This one is more for us to see the dimensions I need. If we need one bigger, I'll ask Momo if she can make a bit more cloth and I'll sew it together with this one. That would make this easier. Yui looked at the makeshift bed and pushed down on it, still somewhat impressed they could actually lay on something that isn't solid ground or Izuku's muscles now. So we can sleep on this? Setsuna questioned with a smirk. Goal is kinda to make resting easier. Why, what did you have in mind? Izuku earnestly asked for feedback in hopes to make this easier for them. Well, I've got something we could do to try and help get dimensions. Setsuna laid on the bed crossing her legs while pulling a strawberry out from the set of fruit she had. We could Kristen. She started to eat the piece of fruit rather seductively for Izuku to go red. I don't think everyone will enjoy sleeping on something we did it on. Since we do use you as a pillow, that would be easier to tell. I guess I can agree to this. Yui calmly replied for Izuku to be amazed. Besides, we have a deal, Setsuna. The size quirk girl got between Setsuna's legs to lick her inner thigh. And I plan to have you acknowledge that. Just what do I get myself caught up in? Few hours later, Ochako. He got up immediately to see Momo and Ibara beside her looking rather flushed. Sorry, we were dash. It's fine. Both wanted to do it anyway and I already told them both what would happen if they did. Wait, so you swing both ways? The brunette thought for a second before answering. Maybe a little. She glanced at Setsuna who looked as if she was in a war. You really did a number on her, didn't you? Yeah, I'm gonna have to apologize to her when she's conscious. Something tells me she liked this though. Izuku looked over to have Ochako point out a smile on her face. Either way, nice job Deku. Now time to get Mina and something tells me we should pay her back a little ourselves. Ochako gave a wicked smirk for Izuku to agree and have one himself. I think I'm gonna enjoy this couple game. 3 more months had passed with things somewhat starting to look better. In the aspect of Hatsume, she began to make something that would help as well as find a way to determine the actual date and time the 7 were teleported to. She brought in Ida and Kendo who had constantly asked for any updates. There, she explained her findings to both them and Aizawa. So I've got sorta good news and somewhat irritating news. What do you mean by sorta good? Aizawa asked while sipping from his coffee. I found a way to get everyone's location. Both class reps began to smile in happiness. That is amazing Hatsume. So we can teleport them back at any moment. Nope. Huh. Hatsume looked at them while not understanding the confusion. I said it was sorta good. I still can't bring them back without something to connect to them like a return pad. And for that, we have the somewhat irritating part. Which is, Hatsume pulls a lever to activate up a small platform. One of us needs to go back in time and bring a return pad. It'll be transported with you the second you go in, so you don't have to worry about carrying it. Alright then, I'll head in. Shouldn't be a problem. Kendo began walking on the platform before being stopped by Hatsume. There's one thing I need to mention. Everyone listened carefully. You need to strip before going into the transporter. What? Not gonna explain it, just think Terminator time travel rules. No clothes or incinerated. Kendo thought of this for 2 seconds before turning to Ida and Aizawa. Can I get a little privacy when this is happening, please? Yes. Sorry. I'll be outside. Ida started walking out with Aizawa following to give the room to them. Either that or I can't guarantee your safety. Let's get this over with then. Suck it up, you big baby. Kendo stood in the center of the teleporter covering the important parts of her body while Hatsume gave some of the final components. When she did, several lights went on before a humongous flashing light blinded the room. When it began to dim, Kendo was gone with the only thing indicating she was in the room being her clothes she took off. She's gone. You can come back in now. Aizawa and Ida walked in to see Kendo no longer being in the room. I take it the transporter worked? Yep. Now all we need to do is, zap boom, the machine and main computer in the lab began sparking before exploding and leaving both a burning pile of electronics. Well, that's a problem. Back with the 7. Ochako and Yui were returning with firewood that Izuku cut to the shoreline with Momo preparing their dinner for the night. While this happened, Ibara began feeding the cattle they had in the pens before a strange orangish light came in the center of everything. The heck is that? Setsuna came out of the woods to see the blinding flash before the sight of her classmate was in front of them. Out of the light plopped Itsuka on the sand of the beach, her bust deformed slightly jiggling as she hit the sand. She pushes herself off the floor and spits the sand out of her mouth. Itsuka! Yui ran over to see her friend who was covering herself with some irritation. I have been falling. For 30 minutes. What the hell, Hatsume? Seems we are all victims of that woman's debauchery. Ibara walked over holding her stomach that had a strange bump on it. Thinking this was what it was, Itsuka's mind froze immediately. Is she? It's a long story, but yes. Ibara is pregnant. 3 months in if we're being more specific. Momo points this out to make a little bit of confusion come the orange-haired girl's way. Are any of you all Futa perhaps? Itsuka questions. No, we are not. She got smashed by Izuku in a fun way. Setsuna winked before Mina and Izuku came running from the other side of the beach. We saw the light. What happened and Izuku immediately covered his eyes as Itsuka completely forgot that she wasn't wearing anything. Cover your eyes, you perv. She fell to the ground trying to cover herself while Momo made her friend a bit of clothing. Here. Itsuka put on the garments and told Izuku it was safe to look now. He turned around to see Itsuka in an outfit somewhat relatable to a Chinese dress with her chest somewhat exposed to emphasize her ample cleavage. I have so many questions right now. First off, how did you get here? Second, can we go back? Third, can I kill Hatsume when we return? Yui asked for her friend to answer the best she could. Hatsume made a way to get here. I was sent here in order to bring you all back. And not before I do. She cleared her throat before noticing the small metal cylinder near her. To be fair, I think Ibara has the first claim to killing Hatsume out of everyone here. Setsuna just thought Deku should raw dog her and do some sadistic punishment shit. Itsuka looked up from the metal piece at Mina's comment before asking a serious question. What the hell did I miss here? A lot. Yui clarified for Momo to go down the line. And I still haven't gotten my fun yet? Mina groans in annoyance. As in our own desire or a moment to talk? Itsuka raised an eyebrow before pulling her away from everyone. Okay, how exactly did this happen? I thought you didn't want to date anyone in UA? Well, it's kinda a difficult thing to explain. To make things simple, I've been kinda trying to determine what my sexual preference is and didn't want to date anyone before I knew. And I kinda like to be dominated and be the one dominating, so to speak. Itsuka couldn't believe what had happened to everyone. She had been worried sick for them all this time, thinking they were barely surviving, yet they are in front of her treating this incident like a vacation. Alright. Well, let's just get back before an issue comes our way. She walked back towards the group before activating the return pad they had. Unfortunately, it wasn't working for some reason. The heck? She reread the instructions on the side of it for her to repeat the steps and nothing happened. Is it busted or something? Mina asked while the orange-haired girl got even more annoyed. It's not working. The sound of something large coming their way pulled their attention elsewhere for the group to immediately grab the food and motion Itsuka to follow them. What's wrong? Just follow us now. Ochako pulled Itsuka for them to get into the forest before seeing a giant foot of a Tyrannosaurus. The group decided to move this to the cave in hopes to avoid any more dangers. Once there, Itsuka tried to follow the instructions one last time for it to break on her and smoke up the hollowed tunnel. Cough, just what the heck is going on? Izuku brought the metallic object out for the group to begin trying to think what to do next. So what was supposed to happen with that? Ibara asks. When I would set it down, there's supposed to be a bright light. When that would happen, we all would have to huddle together and press the red button on the top. Unless it lights up though, it can't work. So that means something's internally wrong. Maybe we can ask Hatsume about it? Ochako gives a chipper demeanor for Momo's thoughts of what happened. Setsuna immediately hopped on the computer to find it opened up to a rather obscene image of when she took a video of the boys' locker room by logging into her cloud file. The girls rolled their eyes before she started the video chat. Unfortunately, there was no ability for them to get in touch with the present time for some reason. That's weird. Maybe there's some interference or something? We're in the freaking prehistoric time. I doubt there's interference unless the damn Treks learned how to use an iPhone. Mina mentions before trying to smack the computer. Yeah, that's gonna do nothing. For now, let's just relax. These things solve themselves out. Momo offers everyone their meal with Izuku coming in. As they sat on the cave floor, the green-haired boy gave half his meal to Itsuka. Sorry we don't have a lot made. We only made enough for all of us and didn't expect anyone to come. It's okay. It's not your fault. Itsuka began eating the fish that they had made to at least feel a little better to have some food in her. It's not the #1 choice, but at least it beats an empty stomach. Agreed. Everyone states in unison to their meal. After they eat and relax a bit, the group begins heading over to the makeshift bed Izuku made. Seeing how they were sleeping, Itsuka somewhat blushes as Izuku is literally being used as a pillow in this. So, why are you all on top of Midoriya? Back in the present, after the fire was put out and the computer system salvaged, Hatsume began assessing the damage to smell something. Orange soda? Did you find out what happened? Aizawa walked in with the teachers and students. Someone poured orange soda inside the system and shorted it out. The pro glared at her thinking it was her mistake. Whoa, I know I do a lot of stuff that blows up, but without any doubt, this isn't my mistake. Plus, it's in a spot where it couldn't have been an accident since the motherboard was inside the computer behind 3 locked doors. This was sabotage. Fine. Let me check out the security cams. Power Loader pulled up the cams to show a certain blonde coming into the room with a can in his hand. He began pouring the contents over the motherboard while laughing to himself. Power Loader shut off the footage to look at the culprit who was drinking a similar can of orange soda that was poured on the system. Oh boo-hoo. Some of the Class A garbage can't come back. Better that they stay in the past and out of Class B's greatness anyway. Aizawa grabbed Monoma by the throat with his capture gear. We have tried for months to get those 7 back and finally made some headway. Now we have to start from square one. Nito Monoma, get the fuck out of my school. You're expelled, you miserable shit. Worse than that, unfortunately. Everyone looked over to Hatsume. That motherboard was made and produced with 5 years of production prior to being used. That isn't replaceable as you think. This can take years to rebuild easily. I don't think I have a spare. And we just sent Kendo in the past to give them good news. Give me a moment, I might have something to assist in this. Hatsume gets up before taking a scalpel and driving into Monoma's hand as she walks past him. The sounds of clanging metal and breaking glass clatter from the next room as she walks back with a device that looks similar to a fizz gun. This is a matter replicator. I can replicate the materials we need from the old fried motherboard to make a new one. I just need to work out the bugs first and calibrate it to not replicate the orange soda that's all over the old one. This should take a couple days to calibrate, then hours to remake the new one. From there it's just setting up the electronics. So, hopefully, this will bring it down to a week or two at most. She pointed the gun at the motherboard before it exploded as well. Nuts. Well, back to the drawing board with everything. However, I do have the backups for the design and the components needed for it. It will take a month or two, but if I can get the materials it can be done. For the first time in a long history of being uncharismatically calm, Izawa now had the urge to scream at the top of his lungs. Momo, who was still down on his luck, having had the scalpel pierce an artery and now with his hand pissing blood, now has Izawa string him up with his scarf and practically hangs him as he drug out of the room. A few days passed since Izuku came flying back in time with the group for them to integrate her fairly easily into the normality they've come to accept. Today, Izuku had brought the orange-haired girl out for them to set some traps. That should do it. As Izuku tied the last bit to a trap, Izuku looked to not understand the reason behind this. Midoriya, don't we have livestock we're raising and a set of fish ready to eat at the cave? I don't see the logic in this. It's hard to explain, but we'll be capturing a special bubblegum female today. Still not getting it, Izuku explained it. Since day one here, this was Ochako's idea. Since today she's paired with Mina, her payback is gonna happen today. The two heard people coming for Izuku to move Izuku into the bushes. So when can I start getting some fun with Mito? I've kinda been wanting to taste that meat the day I saw him rail Ibara. Oh, trust me, you'll get to soon. Ochako and Mina walked by with the brunette noticing the disturbed ground. You know Mina, I've been kinda wanting to ask you if you'd be interested in some girl-on-girl action before getting it on with Deku? Whoa, Ochako, you might wanna calm down, Ibara. Mina backed right into the trap to be pulled into the air and tied her bondage style in the trees before coming down to hang with her head by Ochako's stomach. Well, that worked easier than I thought. Deku, you can come out now. Izuku came out of the bushes with Izuku staying where she was not wanting to be seen. So what's going on now? You see, Mina, me and the other girls are kinda getting on edge with all the stuff you've done. Setsuna had her dues given when me and Yui did her at the same time, but you're still scot-free. So what, you both going to double-team me? I like the freaky spirit. Nope. We're going to tempt you to a state where you're going to lose your mind, then have Deku stuff you full after stuffing me. Kinky. Oh, I'd like to see you do that after I do this. Izuku pulled one of the vines he used for the ones around Mina to pull tighter against her skin. She started gritting her teeth while feeling this. You know, you went through all the trouble of doing this just to get back at me, and I see the hard work you did to respect it. But you forgot one thing, Midoriya, she says coyly, biting her lower lip. And what's that? Acid melts vines. Shit. I forgot about her quirk. Mina's acid broke through the vines and had her tackle Izuku to the ground. Seems somebody got a little too big for his britches. Mina started pulling her clothes off with satisfaction before lassoing Ochako's leg with some of the remaining vines to keep her from going anywhere. Now, time for me to have my treat. Izuku began running back to the cave where she noticed Momo and Yui inside storing some food. Momo, you won't believe what I just saw. Did somebody get hurt? Momo, once again, this isn't new to us. Momo got up to walk towards the bucket of water they had for drinking to refill one of the water bottles they had from the supply package a while back. Why don't you take some time and accept this happens? We don't mind it, Midoriya doesn't mind it, the only one that does is you, or so we expected. The creation quirk user looks down to see Itsuka's lower half somewhat damp for her to run out. I'm going for a swim to cool off. She ran out to glance down at her pants to feel an abnormal heat from her body. Why did they have to do that in front of me? Having to handle Monoma for so long, the class rep of Class B has had no time to herself and for the most part focused on her training. This, in her point of view, had left no room for other things and the thought of a boyfriend to be almost impossible. As such, she's kept her mind out of these thoughts until recently. As she glanced down, the image of Izuku reciprocating what he had done to Mina and Ochako played with her in their position to make the big fist quirk user more uneasy. Focus, Izuku. Just go to the lake and cool off. You'll feel better after. Itsuka sat down and began cooling her body off. As she did, the images of both Mina and Izuku flooded back into her head. I did that, would I make those faces too? Her hand began to move closer to her crotch as her mind drifted to the fantasy of Izuku ravaging her came to her mind. What's happening to me? She looked down to see what she was doing and immediately pulled her hand away and stood up to shout in anger. I'm not a pervert, so why am I thinking these thoughts? A set of birds flew away at her shout for an actual ear nearby to listen in. So Itsuka's getting hot under the collar. Something tells me I can have fun with this. The ear belonged to Setsuna, who began thinking of a plan to get Izuku and Itsuka together to finish the set and go into phase 3 of the population plan that her and Mina thought up. About 2 weeks had passed since the incident regarding Itsuka and the machine for everyone in Class B to hold some unease. Not only did another one of their own get sent into the past with no way out, but the escape was sabotaged by one of their own classmates. Right now, the 15 students are sitting in their classroom with the girls talking among themselves. I hope Itsuka's okay. Yanagi seemed to be worried immensely due to some of the times she's heard Hatsume's inventions go wrong, to at least hope their friend got to where the 7 were in time safely and not somewhere else. Don't worry. This time it was Monoma that made things blow up, she'll be fine. Tsunatori seemed to have some confidence, with Komori agreeing. Chances are, Itsuka's taking this more like a vacation for not having to deal with Monoma. As they spoke, the guys who overheard this thought about the fact since day one Itsuka's been keeping their former blonde classmate in line. To them, the thought of even going back to prehistoric time would be heaven to what she had to deal with on average. With the 8, this is hell. Itsuka thought this as she laid in the cave on an abnormally hot day. Ordinarily, the group would go out and scavenge for what they need. However, today was a little too hot for them to do anything to spend the hotter times in the day laying in the cave trying to beat the heat. For the past week, however, the orange-haired girl has struggled with her own body in ways she's never dealt with. Ordinarily, she spent her days trying to keep ahead in her classes, train, and keep Monoma in line. Now, most of her time had been freed up for her to be in an odd state. Things didn't help that her mind wandered towards the incident that happened with Izuku, Ochako and Mina very often and fantasized about that. Now she's feeling abnormal things with herself and doesn't know how to comprehend them. So you've been feeling nausea for the past few mornings? Ibara began, speaking to Ochako with her smiling happily. Yep. It's hard to determine right away, but I think I might be pregnant. Both girls smiled before beginning to go down the line of possible baby names they could do for their future children. Looking at Ibara's growing stomach, Itsuka began to think of herself in that situation with Izuku caressing her for some reason. Get those stupid thoughts out of your head. This is why you're turning into some kind of pervert. She turned to her side with the odd actions taking the interest of Momo. Hey Itsuka? Do you want to join me to the lake to try and cool off a bit? Itsuka looked at her friend to nod. The two got up and left for the lake and noticed Izuku trying to make adjustments to their bed, notably sweating a storm. Isn't that lake on fire? Midoriya told me it had oil in it, then got struck with lightning a couple months ago for you guys. Itsuka questions. There's more than one lake on the island and there's natural springs here too. It's where we get our water. As they left and went towards the lake, Momo took some notes of how her friend looked as opposed to when she first arrived. Her normally calm and chipper eyes turned into sunken back and rather lethargic ones. Her normal posture became bent over as if it was hard for her to even carry her own weight anymore. Even her smile seemed to be hollow when she presented it. It was almost as if the Itsuka Momo knew was dying inside to the point it hurt her to see. Hey Itsuka. Are you okay? Why do you ask? Well, you seem off. Almost as if something is bothering you really badly. She placed her hand on Itsuka's shoulder while giving a concerned look. Do you want to talk about it? Seeing that they were at the lake and away from prying ears, the two undressed and got into the lake for her to begin. Since I was little, I've actually had to deal with Monoma being kinda, well him. That's enough to make anyone cry. It is. It's even worse knowing what we've seen of him in Yui is him mellowing out. Momo's eyes widened a bit knowing that Monoma was notably worse than he was. Since we've been in the same classes, I've kinda made it a point to pull him back when he'd go too far and have tried to keep him from going overboard. This was for some cases a full-time job with training at the dojo I went to, taking up most of the free time I had. So are you bored? Maybe a little, but that's not the issue I'm getting at. Itsuka cleared her throat while explaining. Since I've been dealing with Monoma for a long time, I've had to keep my attention on that and my training to not pay attention to other things. I didn't have a problem till I saw that. Momo was unsure what she meant to ask. That? You know? Her face went red for Momo to understand now. Oh, now I get it. Izuku, Ochako and Mina helped open you up to something and you've never actually had interest in these things and explored them? I thought these things were pointless and didn't want to waste my time with them. She turned away and said the next bit softly. Until after seeing it happen in front of me, Momo looked over for Itsuka to turn red. Since I've never had an interest in those things, what happened was a shock to the point I kinda started exploring it. Sadly, doing it alone made me a little. Now that the gate's open, you can't shut it and you don't know what to do since any normal means of self-gratification would be insufficient. I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm losing my mind since I can't do anything to stop it. Itsuka put her head down into the water for Momo to give a blunt answer. Then just do it with Izuku? What? Momo looked over to see Itsuka completely out of the water and showing off what she has. Oh my. Should I expect this as an open invitation for me? She joked for the big fist quirk user to hide her body in the water. Don't be so ashamed of the thought. The way I had done it with Izuku is in a cave while running from a Tyrannosaurus. This was also how we found out Izuku is allergic to latex. So that's why you all don't use protection when you're doing that. For the most part, yes. Itsuka looked down a bit to her chest floating up from the water. But going up to him and saying, "What's your angle in all this?" Momo raised her eyebrow trying to think what Setsuna would gain from Izuku and Itsuka doing it. Can't a girl help her gal pals out without being scrutinized for it? Both girls looked at her in an unconvinced way for her to explain the truth. Sometimes I wonder if my Netta is the most perverse person or if he comes in second. Momo gives an emotionless stare for the dark green-haired girl to defend herself. Everyone looked at her in the cave for a minute before turning back to what they were doing. As they did, Momo could only let out a sigh before going to see what they had for dinner that night. As Izuku and Itsuka walked out to gather some fruit, the duo went rather deep into the forest where the trees covered almost all the sunlight. Small beams came through the leaves for there to be light without any threats of tripping over something and seeing a distance ahead. So what type of fruit are we looking for? I saw a couple apples on a tree almost ready the last time I was supposed to gather fruit. It should be ready by now. The two got to a tree growing apples for Izuku to smile. Alright, let's start picking. The two began moving to grab a few pieces before a bit of confusion came to Itsuka. Since when do apples grow in prehistoric time? They don't. As far as I know. Maybe the fruit is close enough to apples that it's got similar properties. Izuku tried to reach for an apple a bit higher on the tree to find himself just too short. Hey Kendo, any chance you can hop on my shoulders to grab these pieces of fruit? Sure. Izuku knelt down for Itsuka to get on top of him. Her thighs went around his head for her body to begin shaking a bit. Just calm down Itsuka. You're helping Midoriya. He's not trying to do. She stopped her sentence mid-thought when she started seeing a rather peculiar image of Izuku's face between her legs. Snap out of these perverse thoughts. I'm gonna start standing up now. You ready? Why? Go ahead. Izuku stood up for Itsuka to be able to grab the fruit. I'm gonna hold the bag open down here. All I need you to do is toss the fruit into it. Okay. Trying to focus, Itsuka kept her head up and picked fruit that was ripe. While she was doing this, however, Izuku adjusted where his hands were to grab a hold of the big fist quirk user's thighs. She immediately tensed up with her mind barely able to keep itself from wandering to the feeling of how close Izuku was to her. Focus Itsuka. Don't think about that. Izuku started to feel something dampening his head a bit. Hey Kendo, is it a bit hot for you? Realizing what he meant, Itsuka looked down to realize the moisture Izuku was feeling wasn't sweat, but something else entirely. She began to panic, trying to get away from Izuku quickly. Wait, you're gonna make me fall? The OFA user started to fall back with Itsuka becoming off balance as well. I'm gonna fall? Izuku tripped on a rock for the two to begin falling. In the moment, he tried to turn Itsuka to him and brace the landing with his back. This worked for the most part, with Itsuka avoiding a painful landing. Sorry, Midoriya. You okay? She stopped when she noticed Izuku's face was buried in her cleavage. I'm so sorry. She pulled back a bit for her but to hit something and hold in a shout. Looking down, Izuku realized finally what the sweats was that he felt. Hey Kendo. Are you alright? Why? I didn't get hurt from the fall. She tried to avoid eye contact with Izuku, knowing what she was up against, and was somewhat ashamed as to why she panicked. That wasn't really what I meant. You seem kinda jumpy. The big fist quirk user looked away for a moment before answering. Why, you remember what you did to Mina back then, right? What I did to Mina? Oh. Yeah. Well, since then I've been having problems with some things. From what Momo said, it's something more along the lines of desire than anything. Already feeling like an idiot, Itsuka started telling Izuku about how she never really had significant freedom until recently to get to the point she wanted. What I'm trying to say is, would you be willing to, with me? Still confused, Izuku gave Itsuka a stare as if he was lost. Losing her patience now, she shouted with annoyance. I want you to fuck me. There was a slight silence between the two, with Itsuka amazed she said this and Izuku somewhat shocked how blunt she was. Wait, seriously? Seriously? You're not against doing it with me? Oh. Honestly, I've somewhat lost the ability to fight against it since, Ibara kinda did what she did. Also, Ochako gave me the green light to do the girls here, so that's kinda working in our favor. Izuku began getting up to stare at Itsuka in the face. To be honest, I'm somewhat curious what Yui desires in you myself. You mind if I see what that is? The OFA user gave a grin as wide as the Cheshire Cat's, somewhat worrying Itsuka. I think I just opened a can of worms or something. 2 hours later, the duo returned to the cave shortly after, with Izuku carrying Itsuka on his back. Well, isn't this a shock? Itsuka Kendo. Class B's big sister getting shoved full of man meat that she needs to have him carry her. Setsuna tried to poke fun, but was ignored as Itsuka's mind was still in the afterglow of what happened. You feel a little better, Itsuka? Momo walked up to them with a smile on the big fist quirk user's face. Yeah. I feel a little better now that that's out of my system. A week had passed since Itsuka's little act with Izuku for the group to begin having some relatively normal days. Then again, nothing in their life had been normal since they arrived. The 8 continued the work they had been doing with no complaints. In the present, drill, drill, wrench, wrench, bologna sandwich, bologna sandwich. After putting in a request for Melissa Shield to head towards UA, the blonde inventor was explained of the situation happening in the school where the group had been trying to save Izuku and the girls who were trapped in the past. Feeling more than obligated to help a friend as well as aid in rebuilding the machine she helped invent that somewhat caused this, Melissa took the earliest plane she could towards Japan and got her hands elbow deep into work the moment she walked onto the campus. How does it look so far? Aizawa asked, monitoring the two. From what I can tell, we're doing rather well. We had the capacitor for section F86 up and running, so that means we should be able to power subsection HPH659 and order a protocol I-80-. Just tell me in words, how far are you from being able to bring everyone back? A month? Give or take a few weeks? Aizawa stared at Melissa, somewhat surprised. To be honest, 6 to 8 weeks is more likely to get us around where we could, but we're still missing some major components. Which are? Titanium capacitor, a uranium hydraulic cooling matrix, an electrical voltage configurator, ulcer rebound cap dash. Why don't you tell this to Power Loader or Nizu, since I can't understand any of what you're trying to say? Hey Mel, pass me a 7/8 socket wrench as well as a cream soda. Melissa did as Hatsume asked to begin working on the mainframe of their work. I'm getting more coffee. Since Melissa's here, I can guarantee that you'll stay on track. Aizawa left the room with the two inventors continuing their work. So why did you put Deku and everyone in the past? 3 reasons. 1. I wanted to see if my transporter worked. Wait, but I thought it was a time machine dash. 2nd, I wanted to test out a theory of mine about his quirk and the quirk singularity theory to see if quirks I found that are compatible with Midoriya's will make a difference. Wait, then why was Kendo sent back? She was compatible as well, but I could only do a few at a time with the 7 before her being done. Strangely, Melissa could see where the pink-haired inventor was going before asking one final question. So what was the third reason? That's for another day. Now hand me Philip's head screwdriver. Melissa passed the screwdriver to Hatsume before looking at the blueprints. Weird, this doesn't look like the machine we had. Also, we never succeeded in anything like this in the time May was at Island. How did she succeed where some of our greatest scientific minds failed? As this thought came through, a strange electrical current went through the room. This destroyed nearly every piece of electrical equipment in the department as well as the lights. The heck was that? Hatsume grabbed her phone out of her pocket to see that it was destroyed. Could it have been a villain attack? Maybe. The door opened to Izawa walking in with a flashlight in hand. Everyone all right? Just a little shaken up. What happened? Izawa pinched the bridge of his nose before replying. A villain tried to attack the school with a quirk that destroys machines. He's captured now, so that's not a problem. But from the lack of light in here, I guess it happened here as well? Yeah, but the emergency generator should kick on right about? The emergency lights came on right after Hatsume pointed at them. Now that they were able to see, Melissa walked towards the monitor of their machine to start typing on it. What the? She began working to try and configure some power to the machine to see it wasn't working. Hey May, does the emergency generator have enough to power the machine? Why? The blonde began panicking a bit before checking the motherboard. It's fried. What? Hatsume ran over to see smoke coming off the main system. The blackout must have fried the mainframe. Can you fix it? The central processor in this was handmade by me. It took me 10 years just to make it. Even if that was just it, half of the parts used in it I can't find anymore. I'd have to find a completely new way to make this with different pieces. Melissa started to cry a bit. I don't have a backup plan for this. Hatsume, do you have anything to fix this? Nope. What I had from the pieces that we can't find anymore were used in this. I also scrapped a motherboard my Netta had for porn to make some ends meet. And while we're on that topic, the guy really needs to have his morals checked out. Why am I not surprised by that? Izawa spoke to himself before trying to grasp the situation a bit. How long exactly would it take you in theory to replicate the same motherboard with different pieces? At best, 10 years. We're basically scrapping all blueprints on it and starting entirely from the start. The pro gave a deep sigh before starting to walk out. Get a call set up between us and the students in the past. We'll tell them and the students. Hear what's happening and where we'll go from there. With Izuku and Ochako taking time to themselves. Izuku and Ochako had spent some time at the lake enjoying a cool soak. Both completed their work today to make a little time for them to spend together as a couple. As they did, the OFA user held a bit of annoyance from this morning. How did our lives turn from trapped in a dangerous situation to it becoming almost like an adult movie? I never thought of it that way. It's just, I don't want to go too far past a point of no return while we're here. What happened with you and Ibara? Well, that was an accident. Sorta. More with her than you. You got a point there. Ochako laid back on Izuku's chest while they were in the water for Izuku to hold her. When we get back, we're gonna have a lot of issues explaining this to our families. Yeah. My mom will probably like the fact she's getting 2 grandchildren if anything. The two started laughing a bit before getting back to the serious topic at hand. Hey Deku, what's the law for marriage in Japan? I can only marry one woman and have only that marriage legal if you're thinking of having you and Ibara share me. So in the end, one of us will be unhappy. Now I see why you don't want to try and get the baby-making train going at full speed. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to be a father of several children. But when we get back, it will be harder for all of us if we physically can't go back to the way things were. So this is for us to stay happy and avoid any long-term problems. Izuku nodded for them to remain in their position for a few more minutes. Probably. First things first though, we need to get home. I'm way ahead of you on that. The two started to get out of the lake to dry off and put on their clothing. While walking, Ochako held Izuku's arm close to her body with satisfaction for the OFA Quirk user to place his head on the brunette's. Entering back into the cave, the two announced their return. We're back. The 6 were inside the cave waiting to establish a link with Yui. Seeing the two close and happy, Mina started to smirk. Mina, Both shouted for the acid quirk user to laugh uncontrollably. Alright you three. Let's get in touch with Yui and see how far they are away from Dash. As Momo was speaking, the group obtained a contact from Yui to answer it. On it, Izawa was standing in front of the screen with the entire class in the background. Hello. Is everyone in the cave with you, Yayarozu? Izawa spoke for the creation quirk user to nod. Good. Then we can start. The pro seemed rather saddened by how he was speaking before coming out with what was on his mind. Due to the recent villain attack that happened here earlier today, there was an incident where the machine we were going to use to bring back those trapped in the past was destroyed beyond repair. Wait, it was destroyed? All 8 got in front of the monitor amazed at this. Unfortunately, Shield and Hatsume can explain this a little better. Izawa stood back from Melissa and Hatsume to stand in front of the class and monitor. Sorry that this is how we're meeting again, everyone. I really didn't want this to be how I'd see you all again. Melissa apologized before explaining how the tools she needed to recreate the machine were no longer available and that it would take quite a bit of time if they were extremely lucky. So how long are we looking at the earliest? Itsuka asked for the blonde to hold her head down. 10 years at least. But the issue is, we don't even know if it's even possible anymore to help you all return to the future. I'm sorry, but I don't have anything that I can do to fix this. Saying this hurt her, with the rest of the students hearing this holding their heads down, knowing they'll probably never get to see their friends ever again. The nerds trapped in the past ga. Izawa wrapped his binding cloth tight around Bakugu's neck to shut him up. I'm sorry this had to happen to you all, but as your teacher, I have one last word of advice for you 8 if this is truly what your life will be like. The tired-looking teacher knelt down to the screen before stating what he wanted. Live your lives the way you see fit. Chances are high you're never going to get back home, so live in whatever way you want to in the past and make sure you survive. Even if things seem bleak for you, remember that you're all not alone in the past. You have each other. Yes, sir. The 8 bowed to Izawa before he went to the power button. Thank you for being my students. Even if this is pointless, I hereby name you all pros. Deku, Uravity, Pinky, Creati, Vine, Rule, Lizardy and Battlefist. I hope to see you all in about 10 years. He shut the monitor off for the 8 teens to look at one another, feeling the gravity of their situation. Wow, I knew this might be possible, but it still hurts knowing this. Momo sat down, almost looking into space, realizing they're stuck where they are. Ibara was about to cry, with tears on Yui and Itsuka's cheeks dripping to the floor of the cave. She trapped us in the past. Mina was accepting this before beginning to scream. Hatsume trapped us in the past because she couldn't keep herself in line. Now what are we supposed to do? Setsuna seemed frozen in place, knowing there was now no way home. She fell to her knees, realizing she squandered everything in the present and took it for granted. Out of everyone, Izuku and Ochako were the closest to sane out of everyone. Everyone. I know this is bad, but remember what Mr. Izawa said? Deku's right. We gotta live on, even if we can't ever get back. The girls tried to help themselves as best they could before Izuku had an idea. 2 days passed for the 8 in the past to begin working towards their next goal. They worked a little harder for a day where they could focus on what was going to happen, and tonight was the night. Izuku came back to the cave with a nice amount of firewood in his arms to keep the cave nice and warm for them in the night, and noticed Momo making some garments. That should do it. What should do it? The creation quirk user shrieked, hearing someone behind her to turn around. Sorry about that, Izuku. You scared me a little. Looking down at the rather colorful garments, Izuku looked at Momo with a bit of curiosity. So what's with the clothes? It was Mina's and Setsuna's idea. They said that this'll help set a mood, as they put it, for having you start this. Grabbing one of the garments, Izuku noticed it was a rather small laced pink thong, with it looking as if it would dig into one of the girls if they wore it. But I guess we'll have to wait to see what happens. Izuku went out to bathe a bit before tonight in hopes to make this a somewhat memorable night and avoid any hopes of off smells ruining it. Later that evening, as the group finished dinner and cleaned up, the girls began talking amongst themselves while keeping Izuku to the side. This ended, however, when Momo got up to look towards the girls and then at Izuku. Izuku, can you leave the cave for a few minutes? Me and the girls want get ready. Understanding this was related to earlier today, Izuku got up and walked out to sit on a rock outside. As he did, he looked at the stars in the sky to smile, knowing how crazy things became, with some solace that it's relatively normal now. You can come back in now. Momo shouted for the OFA Quirk user to walk in. When he did, he noticed each of the girls had a skin-tight version of their hero costume color patterns in the form of lingerie. So Izuku, you like it? Mina said with a bit of a swerve in her hips. Very. Ibara and Ochako pulled Izuku inside to sit him on the bed to start a make-out session with him. I love my life. The next morning, Earth to Izuku. Mina had begun poking Izuku to try and get him to wake up, with the OFA Quirk user holding a lifeless look as he remained unconscious. Are you still alive? Leave him be, Mina. We somewhat put him through heaven and hell last night. Momo responds while eating a piece of fruit. We broke him a little. Setsuna laughed while noticing Ibara holding her but in pain. You good? I allowed Izuku access to my anal cavity last night. I'm still sore. I know that feeling. Itsuka, Setsuna and Mina thought this, remembering their own ordeals in the past. As they sat in a circle, the group began to think of their lives going forward and how the future will look for them. Regardless of if they return or not, they're satisfied as is. About 5 months have passed, with the 8 that were living in the past handling their lives as best they can. Today, the 8 decided to make a nice little picnic out on the beach to enjoy a nice day. Man, you gotta love the weather today. Mina, who is 5 months pregnant, laid on her back and began to slowly drift off to sleep. You shouldn't be doing that, Mina. What if that dinosaur that we ran into the other day finds us? Momo lectures her friend while taking a taste of the soup she was making for everyone. It's also not healthy for you or the baby inside you to laze about. She's got a point. Ochako agreed, showing off her slightly larger pregnant belly. You don't want to get sick, do you? Oh, lighten up. We've been working non-stop making sure everything is set up for Ibara and her baby when it's born. Setsuna points out, looking at the entire group. Besides, we're all gonna be having a hard time coming up. Since the ordeal 5 months ago, everyone in the group had gotten pregnant and had begun to move on with life as it was presented to them. Though the dangers they faced haven't diminished at all, a form of peaceful bliss has come over them, knowing that they have begun taking bigger steps into their lives. But out of everyone, none could be more happy than Izuku. Since they had no ability to date anyone else, so to speak, the girls made a somewhat pact that they'd share him. They did have to beg Ochako a bit, but she caved eventually, knowing that there's nothing that can be done about this. As such, Izuku had not only begun a relationship with 7 girls, he is also the proud father-to-be of at least 7 different children. You okay, Ibara? He asked, the vine quirk holder strained from the weight of her large stomach, almost carrying their child to full term within. I'm fine. Nothing I have yet to be able to handle. Just don't overwhelm yourself, okay? In your condition, that's kinda a bad thing. Izuku looks just like a real father. Itsuka smiled, seeing the OFA Quirk user give attention to their friend. Even since the beginning, Izuku has been very reliable. It does not surprise me that he's trying his best even now. Yui held her swollen stomach with a bit of happiness, knowing how committed Izuku is right now. I hope that sincerity of his is a trait that our children will have. Pretty sure the world as a whole would prefer that kindness be a trait someone can pass on. Looking out in the distance, Itsuka began seeing something rather strange. Hey guys, you seeing that thing out there? Everyone turned their attention to where Itsuka was looking to look as well. You see that weird thing at the horizon over there? Izuku looked closer to notice it held somewhat a boat shape to it. Looks kinda like a boat? That's impossible. We're in the past and those dinosaurs should be living proof of that. Momo decided to make binoculars to settle her theory as proof. To be honest, I think it might just be driftwood in the worst case, or some kind of sea dweller. She stopped when she caught the thing inside of the lenses. Ochako, can you look through this and tell me if what I am seeing is correct? Sure, but what do you think you're seeing? A boat. Looking through the binoculars, the brunette catches light of the object in the distance to slowly grip her free hand. Oh my god. What? Izuku looks at Ochako confused. It is a fucking boat. Are you serious? Everyone shouted with the Tyrannosaurus that they've been running from since they got there, showing its head. But I'm settling this right now. If this thing bleeds, We're hallucinating from most likely too much sun and not enough water. Izuku pulled his arm back and let loose a 20% Detroit smash at the dinosaur's face to watch as the skin over it pulled off and showed a mechanical head that was crushed by the pressure. The now discovered mechanical beast fell to the ground leaking oil from where its head was. So we're not hallucinating and that boat is most likely real. So that means either we're sent so far back in time that we're now in the future, or we were played this entire time. Setsuna points out with everyone glaring at her in agitation. Just a slight gag to kinda ease the tension. So I had given my chastity and my firstborn to a man believing he was the only man on the face of the planet when I had not needed to. Ibara slowly came to reality with this before holding a face of sheer anger. I am going to murder that woman. To be honest, I think we all kinda wanna kill Hatsume at this point in time. First things first though. Momo, can you make a flare gun to get the attention of the people out on that ship? I was already ahead of you on that idea. Momo held a gun with her hands sparkling to show it was recently made. She shot a single round up in the air to get the attention of the boat for it to stop and turn towards their direction. I am ready to kill Hatsume right now. All 8 thought as they waited for the boat to have some crewmen come on shore to help them off the island. Standing in front of Class A and B, the 8 held faces as if they were ready to kill with Izawa not far behind. Alright Hatsume, what exactly did you do? Well, since it's kinda useless to hide this now, I decided to conduct a psychology experiment on 7 girls and 1 boy, chosen at random, in classes A and B. It was designed to see the hierarchy of human society to see if they would form a matriarchal or patriarchal society and who becomes the primary leader. They were under the impression that they would never be returning to the time they came from and thus began the experiment. The robotic dinosaurs had been recording all of their actions this entire time. Midoriya destroyed one of them this morning and the jig was up. Each one of the 8 on the island looked at Hatsume as if she was insane to even call her out on this. That's messed up. Wait, you sent 7 but you only sent 6 the first round. If Kendo was the other one that was chosen, why not send her back to where you did along with everyone else? Izawa tried to ask to understand that. I couldn't get to her before I had to start the transportation process. Also, she was a light sleeper. So you plan to trap me in my belief, back in time regardless of anything? Yep, but Minoma beat me to the punch for sabotaging my baby. Didn't like the fact he actually destroyed it, but it let me test out my baby witch. I did sabotage myself. She laughed happily for everyone involved in this ordeal to be far less than pleased in any way. Hatsume, the pink-haired inventor looked over to see Itsuka with her fist enlarged, Momo with a metal bat, Ochako holding a desk above her head, Yui grabbing a chair, Setsuna with one of her arms pulled off and held as a weapon, Ibara with her vines in a way it looked like a choking position and Mina with acid coming out of her hands. Before any of you do something that will result in the harm of Miss Hatsume, I may be able to help you all. Nizu walked in to see the 8 in their rags with swollen stomachs to indicate his theory was right. You see, I theorized when Miss Hatsume and Miss Shield had said you would most likely be stuck in the past, now island, that you may end up creating a large family of your own to help with the loneliness and give some normality. He pulled out a few papers to place in Izuku's hands. As such, I prepared an appeal to offer the 8 of you a chance at a polygamy marriage in hopes to avoid any ahem scrutiny from the world when you return. Izuku looked over the documents to pass them around. When Momo had them in her hands, she noticed it had the stamp of approval by the Prime Minister to see this was authentic and legit. So we can all marry Izuku? The Creation Quirk user asked for the small rodent to nod. Well, I mean, we are somewhat in a situation where we can't just overlook what happened. Especially She looked down to her stomach before turning to Ochako and Izuku. Do you two have any objections? I came to terms with this when I found out we weren't going home before finding out we were just in the middle of the ocean on an island. Ochako shouted the last bit while turning to Hatsume. I can live with this. As long as everyone else is fine with it, so am I. One by one, the girls signed with Nizu taking the documents back to have them legalized. As for your punishment of Hatsume, you may do that as you please, After you 7 go to RG and conduct sonograms and other tests to make sure that the brats you're playing incubator to our health. Izawa was smacked in the back of the head by the large desk Ochako was holding for referring to her unborn baby already as a brat. I guess I deserve that, but my point still stands. You've been in the wilderness for over 10 months. You lot need to go see if you're malnourished and if you're inhabiting any parasites or microorganisms. I'd rather find out now before it becomes a problem later on and I get yelled at for not telling you to go to the old lady to get checked on. As they spoke, Hatsume tried to sneak away before her leg was snatched out from under her and she was pulled upside down. Her black tank top falling down revealing her stomach and underboob as she tried to scamper away from Ibara. Don't think you are going anywhere anytime soon. Your punishment will begin when we are given a checkup from Recovery Girl. Damn it. Fucking Deku now has 7 sluts that he marred. Bakugo had the desk that was used to hit Izawa over the head thrown at him by said OFA user with the gravity returned. You wanna call my wives that again, you blonde little shit? Katsuki's legs kick around frantically as he's being held by the throat with a single hand. Everyone was a little shocked by this act as the normally kind and caring Izuku not only cursed at their trucker-mouthed classmate, but also was holding him by the neck acting like he was going to strangle him. As this happened, Mineta tried to go towards the girls to look up Momo's skirt to be punted by Setsuna out a window. Thank you. I wanted to do that for a while if we're honest. I always wanted to see if I could punt the midget. Few hours later, after the reality check of what happened, the 8 or 9 with Ibara dragging Hatsume on the ground towards the nurse's office had a checkup to make sure they were alright. For the most part, they were fine with a few small parts of fatigue and strain on their bodies that was able to be fixed with some R&R. When given a clean bill of health, the group was given a key to a dormitory of smaller proportions compared to the one they had back when they were first years to live in. There, Ibara had forced Hatsume to struggle in ways the girls and Izuku could only shudder at remembering how sadistic their wife at this point in time can be. As an apology, the members of Class A and B brought over a bunch of the girls' and Izuku's favorite foods to help them return back to modern civilization. The way they ate, you could almost believe they never had food before now. Granted, a diet consisting mainly of fish and fruit would do that to you. The group began relaxing in the common area watching TV. Just what did you two do in there? Mina asked. The better question is what didn't we do? I'll give Hatsume credit though, she's got a lot more stamina than I thought she would. But our little ones are going to have another sibling lagging about 5 months behind them. The girls were silent as Izuku sat in the center of the couch with Ibara laying on his lap. The other girls came closer to him while having now normal clothing for them with their stomachs poking out of their shirts. So Izawa came over and said that we've still got those pro-hero licenses. It's gonna take a while to make a lot of money for us to raise kids. I have to agree with Setsuna. I am worried about what my parents will think about having a child at 17. Yui worried with everyone else somewhat uneasy as well. I'm going to go talk with Nizu tomorrow. I think a further punishment for Hatsume for this is her sacrificing 50% of the support course budget to help us cover our babies. Ochako, you have no idea how much money you're talking about there. I can cover it just fine and besides, I'm the one that controls the finances for the Yaoyorozu Corporation. My parents are technically retired. I forgot she's loaded. Everyone thought while laying on the couch thinking of their next step. RG said that Ibara should have her baby in the next week or 2, right? Yeah, why? Itsuka asked. Well, my hand and pants are now soaking wet from Ibara's water breaking. Everyone got up to see her hold a pained look and Izuku's and Ibara's pants soaking wet. Shit. 15 hours later. The 8 were seen resting in a hospital room with a small child in Ibara's arms sleeping soundly. The long ordeal of her childbirth had given her a baby boy as healthy as she could ask for. Knowing this was the first of many, Izuku felt happy that he was able to enjoy this moment with everyone. At the time, the girls were able to explain what happened to their parents who were already informed of the incident that happened. Though they weren't happy how things went down, they're at least content that their children were all right. They did however want to talk to Izuku, who was told about 7 times by 7 different parents, with one pair being in person, that he should treat the girls with respect or he'd be dead. Having no plans to cause harm, Izuku agreed for them to give him their blessings. This would start the next chapter of their lives. One where they'd return to their normal lives with struggles from their ordeal, but light for the future. Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend. Let us
Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification. So when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.